Hello everyone, welcome back to the Captain Logan Show. Tis I, Captain Logan, and joining me as always is my wonderful chat moderator and producer, DJ Martinez! Hello, DJ.
Oh, you started speeding up halfway through my intro and I was getting so amped.
Yeah, I wanted to throw you off as much as humanly possible.
Thank you. Well, yeah, because you sped up and you slowed back down, so I was all mixed up.
Exactly. I thought about doing the entire show that way, and then I was like, I can't keep up with that. And everyone will leave.
Yeah, probably.
I gotta get you off balance a little bit.
Well, nobody wants a confused moderator. That makes for a bad show.
I hope nobody can hear the movie that my kids and my wife are watching above us. Suddenly, that's like really loud.
I can hear it. It sounds like Pulp Fiction.
Can you hear it? No, it's not. The bunker is right. Yeah, she's watching that with my 5 kids. The bunker is an unfinished basement, and that's not soundproofed. And occasionally things come through kind of loud through the ceiling. And the movie you'll never believe the movie they're watching. It's a movie that nobody likes on the planet except for my wife, and it's kind of a guilty pleasure for me. But before I came down, Sarah was like, "We're between 2 movies." The last 2 polar opposite things, the last 2 things you ever thought anybody would be between. She goes, I'm going to show Jason either My Fair Lady or The Day After Tomorrow.
Oh, no.
And they're watching the second thing.
Oh, no.
Because she let me pick, and I told them to wait for me for My Fair Lady, because that's one of my favorite musicals, and I never get to see it. And so, yeah, they're watching that terrible disaster film, The Day After Tomorrow.
I had the same thing with you, by the way.
Yeah.
Where my wife we finally watched that last year, and I was like, why didn't you tell me this was about grammar?
Yeah.
You could have sold me on this years ago. I thought it was, I had no idea what it was.
I thought it was going to be really prissy and girly and, like, just, not really for me. I thought it was going to be like a tea drinking kind of experience, right?
Yeah. It was
the first thing, and I don't mean to sound macho about it, but the box is not advertising what the movie is. You don't put that in a pink box. In a frilly pink box.
Yeah, it's just her final form on the front. It doesn't.
Final form, like she's a Pokemon. What is with the boxes tonight in the OBS? You're like way bigger than you should be. I don't know what's happening with this thing. Let me fix it. Anyway, welcome everybody to the Captain Logan Show. Thanks so much for being here. Tonight, we're going to do an Ask Me Anything show, but with a gimmick from 101 episodes ago. Like Dalmatians. Tonight, we're going to do a What If show, and we're not going to be talking about the, I think, mostly hideous What If cartoon, but answering questions put in the What If statement. So anything you want to fill in the blank with that, what if such and such, can be a sci-fi type question, like all great science fiction stories are, beginning with a what if statement. What if dinosaurs still roamed the earth? What if DJ grew a second head? It could be anything. Or it could be a pop culture sort of thing. What if history worked out this other way? What if this person directed or wrote a thing instead of this other person? The possibilities are endless. And DJ, I don't know why we haven't done another one since then, because that is one of my favorite shows we ever did. And when I was trying to decide one for today, I was like, ooh, I missed that. And then I went back and looked, I was like, it's been just over 100 shows ago.
That's crazy. 100 shows. Wow. It's crazy that we've even done 100 shows, honestly.
Yeah, much less the almost 200 we've done. Although the number in the title tonight would lead you to believe that we've done one more than we have, because I actually messed up the numbering somewhere, and I've got to go back and fix that. Tonight is episode 193, I think, not 194, because I messed that up somewhere, and we have a super chat at the beginning that made me realize that, and we'll read that later.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of super chats already, and we got some great pre-writtens that I've been noticing. So,
well, thanks a lot, folks. DJ is, of course, compiling those. So, if you have a really good what if question, please make them all what if you can. And if you have a good one, you can leave it as either a super chat or a regular pre-written question. If you just leave a question without super chat, make sure to ping DJ at DJ Martinez or at the Welder, or any name you want to use, really, that DJ can tell you're talking about him. If you want to make fun of him profusely, he'll accept that. He'll go by really anything.
Yeah, that
he'll answer to
doofus. Whatever you want to call him.
I don't know that if you said at that doofus, though, you would be able to, except for the fact that you just said it, then I guess you'd know.
Well, we know you can't call me at Black Fat Man because it will hide it from me.
Yeah, that's true. You can't use that. I think that was on a show that nobody can.
We learned that in After Dark.
See, was that? I was going to say, was that an After Dark? Or there's a little bit more Patreon content now, or what will be Patreon content. I forgot. I'm going to use that as a segue for just a second. Well, before we do that, let me just say, as always, you can leave a super chat in any dollar amount that will guarantee that your topic is discussed on air, and we're getting quite a few of them, so that's the way to make, again, absolutely positive that I talk about whatever it is that you want me to talk about, but we will do as many pre-writtens as we can as well, so if you don't feel like doing that, or you're not interested in that, don't feel the need to, and thanks a bunch just for showing up and popping in. Really, really appreciate it. DJ, I have been streaming like mad lately, and have really been enjoying it. It's going great. I have done now, this will be the 7th stream in a row, nightly streams here on Geekvolution, and folks have been really receptive and showing up and showing support and chatting with me about all kinds of things, and it's been bizarrely relaxing to do this on the daily basis I have been. And this is not me promising that I'm going to continue necessarily doing this every single day, but I have just managed to be able to do that the last week, and it's been really great, and I just wanted to thank everybody for that. And we're going to start streaming more, if not all of our content, because it's going well. It's been kind of a win-win for everybody. Even when we don't have big crowds for kind of niche reviews and requests and things, there's almost always a couple of people that know more about the thing than I do and can give me a lot of information I didn't have and interesting takes, and really that stuff really enriches the video. And so we're going to continue doing that is the plan right now. And I think we're in kind of, people like to talk about on the channel the sort of different eras of Geekvolution. I think we might be starting to enter yet another one of those as I'm doing more and more streaming of the content. Really surprised that's working out, but it makes so much more sense for my extremely limited schedule right now to just make the stuff in, and I hate to do everything half-assed, but it's making it so that the material can get out right away, and I don't have to stress about not having time to edit things and all of that. The material is obviously more raw because I can't edit things, and I'm trying to get pictures and things in with vaults, especially any way I'm able, since I'm not editing right now. But it's getting a lot more content out, and I'm just hoping that that quantity is not affecting the quality to the point where it's unwatchable and no fun for anybody. And so far, it seems to be working out. So.
No, you heard it here first, folks. This is Moderator DJ, and this is day 7 of Stream Year.
We didn't start on January 1st, which means we would have to, it would have to be what, like January 28th to January 28th or something?
Hey, what? There's no rules. There's no rules.
There are no rules here. Quoting Field of Dreams. Oh no, there are no rules here. So
to see that. I can't believe you haven't made me watch that yet.
I guess didn't realize you hadn't seen it, or I'd forgotten that. I'm sure you told me that.
It was between that and Matrix, and you made me watch Matrix while you were here, so maybe next time.
Right. That's right. Well, I'd already done a Made Me Watch with Eric, so it didn't really make sense to do that for a video.
Yeah, of course. You're just like an evangelist for that movie.
I am, yeah. But I'm not on TV about it, so I'm not a televangelist for that movie.
That's true.
Anyway, so let me give you the rundown for the next couple of days of content. Tomorrow night, we're going to be doing a special secret premiere of a twice-a-month series, that commentary series that Austin and I are going to be doing. I will be irritating and tell you what that is a little bit later in the show. About an hour into the show, I will reveal that in case some folks come in late, and I want, as big of a crowd as I can to bring that up and announce it. Stop announcing things. No, the point was to announce it. At least we decided ahead of time that we were announcing this. So anyway, that is tomorrow night at 10 Central. All I'll tell you right now is it's a blind commentary, it's a movie, and it's the start of an ongoing series. On the, or at least for us, it's a series. The movie itself is not necessarily a series, but it might be. You'll find out. Then on Saturday, I'm going to be over on YouNow again doing a Captain Logan's Jukebox. I'm going to be playing music and talking between tracks with whoever happens to show up and want to hang out with me. And that night, I'm going to be playing the entirety of the Spawn concept album, The Dark Saga by Iced Earth, which came out in 1996 and was one of the only Spawn items I didn't review in Spawn year because of copyright issues. I couldn't play any of the music, so I ended up skipping it. I had a couple jokes about it in the series, so it's referenced, and I think I might have even had the disc on set, because I had every piece of Spawn paraphernalia I could get my hands on. And that's where all the budget for that show went, by the way. I just bought insane amounts. I've sold most of it, but I had insane amounts of Spawn paraphernalia for that show. And, I mean, DJ, we probably spent like $2,000 on, I mean, that includes the set and everything.
Budget on any set. Any show on this channel. Highest budget.
But, well, highest budget show, it didn't cost quite as much as the documentary did, but that was crowdfunded.
Oh, yeah.
The Spawn year came entirely out of my pocket. They're close, though. That movie only cost about $3,000. Maybe three and a half, I forget now, but anyway. Inside baseball, who cares? So
that's interesting to me. Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, thanks. So anyway, those are the big announcements I wanted to give, and then more information about next week coming as I figure out my schedule. But that's the streaming schedule for the next couple of days. I don't know if I'm streaming Sunday yet. I might do something short, but I'm planning on using most of that evening to prep for a show I want to do Monday. But I don't want to announce it yet in case that doesn't happen. I am flying absolutely by the seat of my pants. Okay, that's all the news that's fit to print. Let's go ahead now and until an hour in when I reveal the new series that we're starting tomorrow night. So, and some folks might be able to guess what that is. And I would be interested to see if there are guesses, because I actually think somebody's probably going to guess what it is. The only hint I'll give you is that it's a thing that we've kicked around. And we're finally doing it. So, DJ, are you ready to get into what if? What if Cap and Austin finally did a thing that I've talked about for a long time? What if? Well, that's actually it's actually really going to happen. It's not even a science fiction scenario anymore.
There's gonna be science in this. Anyway,
no, there's no. If you know me, you know there will be no science. I'm not good at math, I'm not good at science, and I'm not good at science experiments, so there will be no science.
Geeks, not nerds. All right, the first, I'm going to go with the pre-written, because this is a cool one.
Absolutely.
From Jane Paulion.
That's not a name I recognize. Welcome. Hi there.
I don't either, but she had a cool one. What if there was an animated Spider-Man movie set in the mid-'60s with a Steve Ditko art style?
That'd be fantastic. Yes. I think the answer to that is...
Great.
The answer to that is a lot more people would appreciate that, and it would be a lot more popular than I think anybody realizes. Like, that's on par with, let's go back to like early Bill Finger art with Batman and do like a Fleischer-esque Batman kind of show, which it looks like we're about to get with Cape Crusader. And if that show is as good as it looks like it might be, I think it's going to be more popular than anybody realizes, because obviously Throwback is in, but also we've been getting so like in the weeds and far away from what some of these characters originally and traditionally have been, that I think a lot of people are just craving getting back to basics and brass tacks with some of these characters. And I think a lot of people recognize what Batman is at its core and what Spider-Man is at its core. And so some of it would be nostalgia sells now and jumping on that trend, of course. But some of it also is just, it's authentic. I think it would do gangbusters.
And I don't mean to, like, call anybody ignorant or anything. I'm not trying to do that, but like,
yeah,
I think
but you are.
After what happened
Ultimately.
in Spider-Verse, at the end of Spider-Verse, where I know the 60 show is different, the art style is a little different. It's kind of based on his art style, though. I think there's a lot of people, even if you made that would think it was related to that show and like a revival of that show. People who aren't like in the know, people who just saw Spider-Verse, and they'd be like, oh, they're making a 60s Spider-Man movie. So I think it would get the audience of the super nerds like us and the normies.
What an excellent point. You know what it should be? It should be, and you probably know what I'm going to say, it should be exactly what Brave and the Bold was for Batman.
Yes.
Where
kind of
that
like
was what a lot of people, when they were kids, including the guy that created it, and that was the whole point of that show, thought they were looking at when they saw 60s Batman. So you do a more sophisticated kind of show that is kind of Stan Lee-esque, but I mean, you would still have to update the storytelling to some degree. I mean, if you made it like verbatim exactly what the Stan Lee issues were, you're already making it like 19 levels of storytelling and characterization of sophistication above what the 60s Spider-Man cartoon was, which is kind of nonsensical, but I don't think you would really want to do that or could get away with that. So you'd want to, update the writing and make it really punchy and clever and creative, and do it like Batman Brave and the Bold did, where that was 60s and 70s throwback, but it was also, as a cartoon, like kind of surprisingly modern. And like, when you say what if, like, this does not sound like a pipe dream kind of thing to me. This seems like a thing that should be the next iteration of Spider-Man in animation, and I would go as far as to say that somebody at Disney is liable to look at Cape Crusader if it's popular and if it works and go, we need to translate that to Spider-Man. And that would be the way you would translate that.
Unless the 90s X-Men revival works too well and then they want to do a 90s Spider-Man. I hope not, but we'll see.
I hope not, but then the curiosity is there of just how flipping insane that would be.
We finally figure out what happens with clone Mary Jane.
Wouldn't it be... Yeah, it's not that I'm curious to see what happens next in that show. I'm curious to see what that showrunner 25 years later would do with that material. And he's still writing. He was doing Cyborg for DC for a while. He's around. He's available. He's still in the business. Semper.
That's amazing.
In fact, that Semper has spent every day since that X-Men show was announced calling out people at Disney, trying desperately to get that show back on the... that's going on. He's already written all of the scripts for season 4. What am I talking about? He's pulled all the ones that he made already out of a drawer, and he's been sitting around since that X... I don't know if he's working right now. I'm making stuff up. He's been sitting around since that X-Men show was announced, and he's already written 5, 6, 7, and 8, DJ.
All right, so yeah, the first super chat was from Tom. He says, what if you skipped episode 192 and this was 193?
Well, see, the whole idea of the what if statement is that you come up with a thing that is not real and you imagine it, and you just need to have more of imagination, Tom, because that happened. The answer is I would go back and fix the numbering, but too late for the question to be relevant.
And you wouldn't be
able for the question to not be relevant. Sorry.
And then you wouldn't be able to make your snarky super chat, Tom. So.
Yeah. In fact, that's the only reason I didn't go back and change it, because I didn't want to make you look bad. You're welcome.
That's right. Yeah. We're all about the viewers here. Speaking of viewers,
sure.
Goofster123 Goofster123 says, what if Ezra Miller or Michael Keaton shows up in The Batman, after credits or otherwise? Ooh.
Would be the absolute biggest mistake that Warner Brothers could make at this point. And first of all, that won't happen. I mean, I always say nothing surprises me anymore. That won't happen. Matt Reeves has too much credibility to do something like that. Too much self-respect is the better word, actually. And I think it would kill all the credibility for that movie if that were to happen. Things like that are very plausible after the fact, but that movie as its own piece, I mean, Reeves very clearly had pretty much his own creative control on that movie, and I think if Warner's tried to force things like that in it, he'd be out, or it would have the potential of wrecking their relationship with him. And with the projections, apparently, I haven't looked at numbers, but I've heard that projections are really high for how well that movie is supposed to do. They wouldn't, even if it was a big after the fact thing that they shot while finishing up Flash, that would be potentially damaging to their relationship with Matt Reeves. They wouldn't want to take that kind of risk. So, there's no way that happens. I guess obviously the question was, what if it happened? If it happened, I think it would. Matt Reeves would likely throw a fit, and
not come back for a sequel.
He might consider not, and other people working on that movie might not consider coming back. They would, and the same thing would have happened with Joker too, like with those guys. There's every possibility, and there's rumors this week that Joker might already have a sequel in the pipeline. There's every possibility that after the fact, because I mean, it's been rumored at least that Warner's is already talking about multiverse to crossover with all of this stuff. But if in the first place, so maybe it could happen later with either of those projects, but if it had happened in the first place with those, imagined as a standalone movie that doesn't necessarily even have to be a big franchise thing, regardless of the fact that it's already getting TV shows and stuff. Obviously, they want it to be a franchise. Matt Reeves is using this as a way to build a universe to keep making Batman things, obviously. No way that they would want to connect it to all of that. If he had any interest in that, he would have gone with, I haven't read the whole interview, but he talked about the reasons that he didn't go with Affleck's original script and didn't want Affleck in the movie, and he would have just done that in the first place if he was interested in any of that lore in DCEU. So, yeah, it would be just the biggest mistake that they could make.
And we would both hate it.
Yes, absolutely.
Next super chat, $5 from T.
Jedi Knight says, you said the same thing about the Harold Ramis ghost. Yeah, and I was absolutely wrong about that. I mean, honestly, I thought that they had more integrity than to do that. And I fought with Austin for a couple of weeks about that. He kept going, oh, they're going to do that. And I was like, that's insane. There's no, and then they did. And he liked it better than I did because it wasn't as tasteless as what he was imagining. And I said they wouldn't be tasteless enough to do it in the first place. And then there it was. And folks, you know, after I reviewed it and tore that apart because I really hated that they did that, folks left comments and were like, well, they had, I'm going to get into this again, but they're like, well, they had the blessing from Harold Ramis' family and all that to do that, so that makes it not crass. And like, just for the, I don't know, for the sake of like what Ghostbusters is partly, and also for what that movie was, it takes this weird pivot toward the end where it's kind of a different thing. Like, I thought when I said that they didn't have any integrity in doing that, I didn't mean as much. It still reads tasteless in the movie to me without any back matter, without knowing that the family said it was okay. But it's still, for the integrity of the piece as a piece, it just seemed like a big misstep. And like at the end, we're just doing, you know, greatest hits, and it's all about legacy, and it's not about these characters that we've been building in the first place. So anyway, that's an aside, but that's why I didn't like that and said that it was kind of lacking in integrity. But you're right, I was wrong about that. I would be shocked and dismayed. I'll go this far. I will never predict anything. I was going to say, I will never predict anything ever again if I'm wrong about this, if they actually have an after-credit scene or some kind of reference to Keaton or The Flash in that movie. I can't make that sort of promise, but I will be, if I had a hat, I would eat it. Like, I will be shocked to the point where I'll never make a prediction again without bringing this up. That's for sure.
What are you talking about? Flash is going to show up, and he's going to be like, Selena is the key. And then there's going to be a whole scene at the end. You know it.
It's going to turn out that Batman isn't Batman because of his parents' murder, but just to keep his girlfriend Selena Kyle alive.
Just because Tin Man Flash showed up and told him to.
He doesn't care about anything but that. Okay.
All right, T-Edge 1. What if the movie about Captain Logan was a sci-fi space epic set in the future? Great show tonight, guys. I love how the question just assumes that there is a movie about Captain Logan in the works.
Yeah, what if the movie? Like, there's not a movie. I mean, you could start with what if there was a movie? And of course, lots of things have been pitched for a potential Geekvolution movie on this show. We've talked about a lot of different ideas with that. I still someday want to do a Geekvolution movie. It will be, no shock to anyone, very low budget and shot mostly with resources I have already if I were to do that. So the first answer to that is, well, it would mean that I either somehow miraculously am able to crowdfund a huge budgeted movie. Like, I would need at least $1 million to make that look remotely credible, and even then it would look shoestring. That's the first. Second of all, I don't know how to make a thing like that, so I'd have to hire a director or a co-director or something. I'm not gonna presume I know how to make that just because I made Spawn here. Like, that's a preposterous idea. But then, you know, what exactly would it look like and all of that? If I did a big sci-fi parody thing for the Captain Logan movie, the first thing I would do would be to be careful not to make it all Star Trek parody. Like, I would probably get as far away from that as possible. There'd be like subtle Trek references, but it wouldn't be like I'm on a starship. Like, I wouldn't want to do that because it's just too obvious. Everybody knows how big of a Star Trek fan I am. If I were going to parody some kind of a sci-fi thing, I don't even know what I would do. I would probably pick something. It would be a hodgepodge of things, and I would probably pick something like off the beaten path enough that some people wouldn't even know what it was, or they'd be, oh, that's not the direction I thought he'd take that. Just to be different and
like Hitchhiker,
surprise you. And it would. It could be in the vein of Hitchhiker tonally, but I've spent my whole career writing-wise trying not to just ape Douglas Adams. Like, it would be quirky, but I would be careful not to have too much aesthetic or trope or anything with that. The first thing that comes to mind would actually be if I did like a direct parody, would be Stargate. Just because that feels like a thing I could get away with a half-decent budget building.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not like a really great-looking gate, but something that's like half-passable.
Half-passable gate.
It'd be like Stargate meets Quantum Leap meets I don't know what the third thing is. Gremlins. That's my pitch.
With a ghost Mogwai at the end that's been approved by the family.
I don't even know what that looks like. Lewis Cox, Cap'n Dune. Yeah, I would need. First of all, I hate the desert, so no.
Have you been to a desert?
No, but I don't like heat. I would much rather go to a frozen tundra than a desert, I think. I mean, I haven't been to either of those things.
Interesting. Well, episode 100, we're going to a frozen tundra and a desert.
Really? We're going to go back in time to make that happen for episode 100?
I mean, sorry, 200. How are we on 200 episodes already?
Yeah, I know. By the way, I have a potential idea, or the formation of an idea for 200, but I'm not going to mention it here because I want to make sure that DJ is interested and willing, and because people keep making fun of us for announcing things on the show as I come up with them, so... But I'm starting to think about it. We've got a few weeks left. One more than I thought we did, in fact.
Oh. Yeah, well, that's true. Thanks, Tom. All right, well, I'm
Senior Nerd says 70s Doctor Who. Sorry, 70s Doctor Who is still too close to Hitchhiker for me because Douglas Adams worked on some of that, and because Doctor Who just in general is already in the kind of some of the same vein and headspace as Hitchhiker, although usually not. I mean, it gets ultra quirky and out there with the pseudoscience and all of that, but it's not quite as absurd as Hitchhiker. Alex Barron. Cap hates the desert. It's full of sand. It's coarse, rough, and irritating. And it gets everywhere.
Everywhere. All right, we got a long one here from Adrian Reyna Martinez.
Hi.
No relation. What if they end up moving forward?
I wonder if that's another non-Hispanic Martinez.
Maybe so.
Maybe so.
Let us know.
Yeah, I'd like to know if there are more of you out there, DJ, where you've got...
unicorn.
What's that?
I'm a unicorn.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, I know your whole family has that last name, but I mean, I wonder if there's, like, other families with the last name Martinez or Martinez, which is how it's really pronounced, but I'm never going to pronounce it that way, that are actually not a Hispanic family.
I don't know. Adrian will have to let us know. But they want to know, what if they ended up moving forward with Tom Cruise Iron Man? What would that look like? But been watching for 12-ish years now, and appreciate you guys for the countless hours of thoughtful discussion. Hello.
Well, thanks so much. Really appreciate that.
Thanks for popping in. That was a $9.99 super chat, so thanks so much.
Wow, that's awesome of you. I never know what to say to that, except that if you went back and you counted all of the ums or the hemming and hawing in the hours, the countless hours, as you say, of thoughtful conversation, we would all be horribly dismayed. I am sure.
Oh man, so Tom Cruise Iron Man. I don't know if they mean they had gone forward with the original plan before Downey, or if they mean now. Is that like in the news again? Or
I don't
something?
think so. My assumption is that they're talking about back then, if
Okay.
that had
'Cause just the
happened.
phrasing was, what if they end up moving forward to Tom
I
Cruise? Which you're
don't
probably right, just talking
remember
about.
any details about that project. Like, was that still supposed to kickstart off MCU, or would that have been another like Daredevil or Ghost Rider?
I don't know.
I don't remember now. If that was an earlier, somebody tell me, because I just can't remember the history of this. If that was like an early consideration for an Iron Man movie that was scrapped, and then eventually we got to Downey in the beginning of the MCU, I think I mean, it's hard to say because who knows what the project would have looked like, but what the story would have been. But like the timing was so right for a big superhero franchise and shared universe right in '08, as Dark Knight was huge and as we were starting to accept, because the movies were getting better, the superhero genre as a legitimate place for storytelling, that if you'd done it even a couple of years before, even if it had been great, it's really hard to say what would have happened. Like, I'll go this far, DJ. Like, forget Tom Cruise. If Favreau's Iron Man movie somehow gets made and put out in 2004, 2005, are we in the same place with MCU that we are now? It's really hard to say. Like, am I giving too much credit to Nolan and the Batman franchise for the fact that the MCU gets off the ground as readily as it does? Because I've always kind of lumped those together. I've always said that 2008 is really important, and that all stars seem to have had to kind of align to make all that happen.
Yeah, that is interesting. Like, even though obviously Batman Begins wasn't as big, but if that had happened before that, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
like what if it had came out the same year as Batman Begins instead of Dark Knight?
It's hard to say. So that's the first question with that, is like, I don't know how to answer that as a what if statement. I think that's, I mean, obviously this is all about speculation, but like pure speculation, it just seems like anything could have happened with that. My gut instinct is you wouldn't have had the MCU quite the way you have it, or it would have taken longer than it did.
Joe Gira says the rumor is that Tom Cruise might cameo as an alternate Tony Stark in Doctor Strange to reference for how he was almost in Iron Man.
That's interesting, and a thing that, unless everybody's reading the news right now, a lot of people will see and go, I don't understand why we're doing that, why that's that. Because I didn't even remember until you said it. Like, now you say that, I remember hearing that was in the works for a minute, but I'd forgotten all about it. Like, if you hadn't left that super chat and I went in to the theater and saw Tom Cruise there as another Iron Man, I'd be like, well, that's weird stunt casting. This feels like a Deadpool move.
Well, it would just be like Ragnarok, where Matt Damon shows up for 2 seconds.
Yeah, except weirder, because it wouldn't be Matt Damon as some other character, or as like some pre-established character. Like, why is Matt Damon in a Daredevil costume? I don't understand that. It'd be like that.
He was in a Loki costume, wasn't he? Because he was playing Loki in the play or something.
Oh, that's what you're talking. Yeah, but it was in a play, and he was half unrecognizable. I didn't even realize it was him until later on.
Yeah, I didn't either.
And at least, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, the question would be like, why that sort of stunt cast? Especially in, I guess my point is, that'll likely be in the midst of a bunch of other, like, obscure or otherwise references to other superhero movies that aren't in MCU, and then all of a sudden you've got Tom Cruise. Like, what is this a reference to? That's what people will wonder. As far as the casting of that and how that might have gone, Tom Cruise is a great actor. I'm sure he could have pulled that off. I don't know. It's just hard to say. I don't know if, because the fanboy answer, of course, is nobody can play Iron Man but Robert Downey. He's perfect. He's right off the page, which is somewhat untrue because they reinvented that character to some degree. I mean, that the character in MCU is almost like an amalgamation of Doctor Strange with Iron Man, and then later they have to figure out how to also give us Doctor Strange, which is really weird. I avoided Strange again. But
good work.
But is it possible that we could live in an alternate reality if that had happened, where we'd be saying the same thing about Tom Cruise? Nobody could play Iron Man but Tom Cruise. It was the perfect, however you like it, reinvention, or like, you know, a Christopher Reeve type casting with Superman. Hard to imagine anybody doing it as well. You know, you'll believe a man can fly in an iron suit. I don't know, but it could have still been great. Like that Tom Cruise isn't, that superhero may not be the first one that I would give to Cruise, but I hesitate to say that because I'm not sure who it would be. Like, I can see him certainly playing a rich mogul guy.
Yeah.
Maybe, but you don't really need Iron Man to be as physical and like ripped and stuff as Tom Cruise often is, because he's wearing a suit. So you'd almost want to save him for somebody that looks good in tights or something, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, maybe. But everyone in tights these days has like muscle padding underneath anyway, so it doesn't even matter. Like, what's his face? For Shazam got like worked out for like a year and got super good shape, and then he's just in the suit the whole time, and you don't even see it at all, and he could have just like sat around and ate potato chips. It would look the same.
I mean, it could have been worse. It could have been the Gordon thing from Justice League.
All right, T-Edge1, $2 super chat. What if Batman's parents had survived?
Ooh, well,
no Batman.
You wouldn't have had a story. It'd be really boring. One of two things happens post New 52 anyway. You either have, and I just mean, like, now that we've had this in the canon, I'm imagining a couple of possibilities. You either have a Gotham City that degenerates even more into madness because somebody doesn't step up, or you have actually lots of ideas are coming to me all of a sudden. You could have a Dick Grayson that steps up without Bruce Wayne, that handles it differently than Batman does. Because
a John Robin Blake, if you will.
Sure, yeah, because he's got the background that Batman has, and he's looking for some sort of outlet for that, and he probably wants to make the world a better place for a lot of the same reasons Batman does, but nobody is as jaded and vengeance-seeking and has the world as crushed and changes them as much as Batman does. So you wouldn't want... You could do this as an Elseworlds, but as far as an alternate history for Batman, you wouldn't want Dick Grayson to just become Batman. It doesn't really make any sense. Like, why the Bat motif? Why would he be quite that dark? He's got a different upbringing. His Bruce Wayne's parents and the wealth and all of that matters to some degree. But I could see a Gotham City that is attempted to be saved by a vigilante that Dick Grayson creates that is not Batman. I also could see Thomas Wayne coming up with some sort of other reason to be Batman himself, and that's why I said, you know, post New 52, that's a thing I could sort of see if he had some other sort of tragedy, I guess, like his wife dies, but the whole idea was if both the parents survive. And then another thing that can happen is you have a happily ever after sort of scenario if you buy into the versions of the Batman universe where Bruce Wayne's parents might have been able to help turn Gotham around if only they had survived. So you have sort of a situation where, because of their... And this is interesting, but, I mean, I don't know, there's more than a one-issue story here, DJ, but, like, Bruce Wayne's parents, through philanthropy, are able to achieve more of what Batman would want to achieve with still using their wealth, but not intimidation, and not just going out every night and punching people.
Or they could just go out every night and punch people.
They could, but I don't know what the impetus is for that if there's no tragedy in their background.
Oh, that was good. Good answer. Good job. I didn't know where that one was going.
Thanks, but whenever you say that, sometimes I feel like I'm on Family Feud. I mean, if you ever watch Family Feud, good answer means crap answer. Have you ever noticed that?
when their family's like, good answer.
Yeah. You're going down the line, and it's like, Let's see if I can come up with something good here. It's like, name a vehicle that you might choose to drive if cars didn't exist. And you're like, snowboard! Good answer. And it's not up there. I mean, almost every time somebody says good answer in Family Feud, like, it's not up there. So when you're like, good answer, I'm like, oh, he thinks I Family Feuded it. The DJ's imagining a big red X right now.
There needs to be more big red X's and sound effects in this show.
On this,
how are we on 200
on
episodes?
Evolution, just in general, really.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't need you to patronize me like that, DJ.
But if I'm a patron, then it's okay.
Well, there's, I don't know if you realize this, but there are some words in the English language that have different meaning. You ever looked up something in a dictionary and it says definition 1 and then definition 2? Different kinds of patronizing.
I've never looked up something in a dictionary.
I mean, did you? I don't know if you realize this, but everybody that's left a super chat so far has been patronizing me.
In a good way. Lewis Cox, $2.
What is happening?
Oh, sorry. I skipped TH1 again. TH1 with another $2. What if you didn't delete Cap Can't Play Sonic Adventure 2? Oh, calling you out.
Wow. Well, the answer to that, this is another, and you didn't realize this when you said it, but this is not an imaginary tale or a what-if story or an Elseworlds or anything. I did not delete that. I didn't delete it. It's not there, but I didn't delete it. How's that even possible, Cat? Well, I'll tell you how it's possible. It's possible because I don't understand you now, and neither does the guy that recruited me to give me a partnership. That's the answer. I don't mean to call him out. No, I just asked him a question he couldn't answer, and basically, not to get too inside baseball, but whenever I simultaneously stream on YouNow, it turns out that the file will retroactively save on YouNow, but not on YouTube. And it doesn't seem like there's any way to keep it there. And I messaged my guy, the recruiter guy, was like, how is there a way to keep it there? And he's like, I'll look into it. I honestly don't know. Nobody's ever asked him that. It hasn't come up, apparently. So I don't know how to do it the other way. I don't know if it's possible to stream on YouTube and then, like, first set it up that way and then go to YouNow. I suspect that it's not. There's no way to do that. So and I think it might be set up this way on purpose, so that the idea is if you simultaneously stream on YouNow, they're advertising on other platforms to try to get those viewers to come to them. They don't want that file to save in both places. They only want it to save on YouNow. That's my guess. But my plan right now is to because the streams I'm doing over there, and I don't know how long I'm going to be doing this. I'm trying it for right now. It's an experiment I'm doing. I'm doing these Saturday streams on YouNow, and I'm making them things that I either can't get away with doing on YouTube, or things that are kind of niche and that the YouTube audience isn't as big of a fan on, and that and that in the past I have sometimes put up too much of, oversaturated, and lost subscribers over, or people have said, hey, Cap, could you find some way to not flood my inbox with this stuff, my feed. So what I'm doing right now with both of the things so far that I'm streaming there, I'm alternating back and forth between game streams and music streams. Again, doing a music stream on Saturday is, and I just haven't been able to get to my desk dealing with children all day, but I'm going to try to get this set up pretty soon, hopefully tonight. I'm going to download the files from YouNow and then get them posted as Patreon content. That's my plan at the moment. So for those streams, you have to watch them live unless you're a patron. You can look at them later. They'll never be review things. I honestly could use some more Patreon content anyway. We're still doing After Dark twice a month, not twice as much. Twice a month, as much as I can get away with. But I'd like to have some other content there too, and for a little while I was doing video game streams as Patreon content, so that's not new. I don't think I'm taking anything away from anybody necessarily, and it's niche. Not a lot of people care about that. Would just be at the $2 tier if you're interested in looking at those, and eventually I might get, if there's enough interest, I might get to where I'm leaving I'm putting more of those over on YouTube in the first place. Or if I get to where I'm not streaming on YouNow anymore, I'm hoping to keep using that platform. But if I get to where I'm not doing that as much or at all, then I might start streaming exclusively again on YouTube and leaving those up, maybe, just depending on what they are. But sometimes those get flagged for copyright with music and stuff too, and it's kind of nice just not to have to deal with that. And now I can get away with any music I want to, so that's part of the reason I've gone over there for those kinds of streams. But anyway, so that's the answer to that. I didn't delete it. The files still exist. At the moment, you can't go to YouNow and watch them because it's under a paywall there, and that was not intentional. I just haven't figured out on the back end how to fix it. You can become apparently a member on YouNow with a partner channel like mine is, and they do like the monthly subscription thing like Patreon. Pardon me one second. And right now it's like a $5 thing. I honestly don't want to have that there right now, but I haven't figured out how to get rid of it. So what I'll probably do, if I can fix that, is have that available there. I think this is what I'll do. I'll actually make it available for free still, but you'd have to go to YouNow. So you could either go to YouNow and watch it, or you could be a patron and watch it that way, maybe. Although then I still have to upload it to YouTube, and even though it's unlisted, I still might have to deal with copyright flags and stuff. So I'm not sure what I'm doing with that yet, but I'm going to make those things available in some way or another. This is me just trying to figure this out on the air, and it's not interesting to anybody, and I apologize. Stop announcing things. So... anyway, that's what's going on with that.
You just can't stop. Oh, Lewis.
AMC just said on YouNow you have to subscribe to the channel for $4.99 to rewatch old streams. And like I was just saying, yeah, I think there's a way to make it to where that's not the case, because I've seen other channels that just have them there. Because wouldn't it be really weird if it was set up to where if you're partnered and you're allowed to make money, you have to? Because I don't think it's like that, but maybe it is.
You have to make money.
Stephen Ernest says, oh, this is weird. I've streamed on YouNow and YouTube, and it saved it on YouTube. Weird. It hasn't with either of the ones I've done. I don't know why that is. Okay, I'll keep futzing with it. Thanks for the information.
All right, another $2 from Lewis Cox, and I don't understand this one. What if DJ was Cap? LOL. My sorry.
My sorry, too, if that ever happened to you.
Yeah,
is it a body switch thing, or is it what if DJ had been me and started the channel, or had my exact life, or yeah, there's too many different.
Because if I had your exact life, I would just be you.
Be me, yeah.
So it wouldn't be any different. But I mean, if it was like a Freaky Friday type situation, I just became you for like a day.
Yeah. Let's do it this way. If you woke up one day and you were me, what would you do in like, what would you, what would you change maybe, like, about, you know, the channel, or like how I do things, or
put me on the spot like
or
that.
like, yeah, well, that's why I'm hesitating, because I'm like, do I even want to get into this? Is this like too difficult of a question to answer? Like, how would you, if you, this is weird, but like, if you woke up one day and you were me, and there was somehow no way you could return back to your own life, like, how would you live mine, I guess, would be the question. I don't know any other way to interpret this.
Yeah, what did you mean, Lewis Cox? Can you clarify?
Because he's like
off of the weeds.
DJ's, whatever it is, I don't want it to be what Cap just said.
No, so one thing would be not having a 9-to-5 job would be very freeing for me for about 2 seconds, and then I'm like, oh crap, I have 5 kids, so I basically have a 9-to-5 job anyway. But I would love it at first.
Oh, but not answering to anybody is awesome, dude.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it would be really cool, and being able to, like, right now I'm doing the channel, like I posted a video this morning, but that's like so like on the fringe, like right before I go to bed I'll film something, or like squeeze in editing really quick. Like it's like, so I have to squeeze it in so hard because I literally have to work from 7 to 4 or 5 every day. So it's like, well, I guess I got to do that on the nights or weekends when I have my kids home, and that doesn't work. So yeah, it would be nice to not have that right away, and it'd be cool to hang out with your kids because I like kids. But I mean, it would get tiresome after a while. as the novelty wore off, as the novelty of being Captain Logan wore off. But
It
no,
does
that'd be
too.
interesting. It does. No, I mean, I always thought about like what it would be like to be a stay-at-home dad. I think I would like that. I think like anything, the grass is always greener. You would start to miss. I would miss my old life here. So I think that'd be interesting. And that's what we're doing for the 200th episode. We're switching bodies.
Switching places, yeah. That would be a coup, wouldn't it? If we
switch lives for
no, if we spent the money, if we were crazy enough to do a big like anniversary special or some just crazy event show where you came all the way here and I went all the way there just so we could have the separate backdrops. And then yeah, like sort of maybe we would make videos where it would, you know, it'd be wife swap. That's what it would be. It would be that show where we'd live each other's lives for a day and film it, and it would just be like me hanging out with your kids and hanging out with your wife and figuring out like what your like day-to-day routine is like, and she'd be like, no, that's not where that goes. DJ knows where that goes, you know, and that kind of thing. And then you know you'd have to deal with like all of my kids, and I would just have to deal with your two, and I'd be like, this is a breeze.
Yeah, you got so much time, and then you'd have to design sports interfaces for Stack Sports, and you'd be like, "Oh my gosh!"
Clearly, we would do this on a weekend.
Okay.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm not real into a lot of reality TV and stuff, but I've seen like one episode of that show. Have you ever seen Wife Swap?
I don't know what that is.
Oh,
but I think I can glean it from the name.
I've only seen like a celebrity one because it was Penn Jillette, and I was fascinated to see what that would be like when he switched places with somebody else, because he used to have, he sold it now, but he used to have this insane like wacky house that he called the Slammer. The name of his house was the Slammer, and it looked like a bizarre theme park. And I was like, I forget who he switched places with, but I was like, I want to see what somebody having to deal with Penn Jillette's family at the Slammer is like. But I always thought it was just the name of that always sounded like weird and risque to me, where I was like, oh, that sounds skeezy, like you're swapping wives. It's not like that. It's
why would you not call it Life Swap or something? That sounds so weird.
That's what it should be, because like you're basically taking the place of another guy with his wife and kids or whatever the situation is for X amount of time, and you're not replacing them as going as far obviously as like now that's your actual wife. It's not like that.
Hey, I wouldn't put that past a reality TV show.
I wouldn't either.
Like, you actually switch.
No, I was surprised that it was half watchable, because it was kind of interesting to see, because the whole idea is basically like an exchange program, where it's like if you went to another country and you switch places with somebody else with that, except the country is like the two houses, and you just have to live with their like day-to-day I don't know, plans and stuff. And so Penn Jillette had to deal with things like the family that he had to go live with for a few days is religious and he is not, and like vehemently not religious. And he found it really difficult to to deal with things like you know, table prayers and stuff, and be respectful about it and all of this. It was really interesting.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, there you go. 200th episode. We just announced another thing.
Lifestyle change, I guess, is what I was trying to say. Where like you have to go live with somebody else's lifestyle for a while. I don't know if that's a thing that anybody would watch, but it would be really interesting if we spent the time and money to do that. Where we just, you know, you lived here and helped my wife for a couple days, and I went there and helped yours for a couple days. That'd be really fascinating.
That would be crazy. Well, YouTube experiment.
It'd be a really cool experiment.
That's after stream year though, so next year we'll do that. Ryder, $2. What if characters from Gotham crossover multiverse?
Oh wow! I mean, anything is possible with all this multiversal stuff now. So like, it's funny.
I mean, yeah, they've run out of Marvel characters. They're having to use people who almost were Marvel characters. Yeah, scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, it's not even interesting, and we haven't even started doing it hardly. No,
characters. Man, that Penguin coming back?
Yeah.
Who's I guess who else is good in that show? The Riddler? Isn't the Riddler good in that show?
Yeah, except for when he's not. I mean, I could say that
Yeah.
about most everybody in that. You know, or if like their not Joker showed up with the other Jokers, or both of them, both of their not Jokers, but they had Jerome with like the horrible caked on makeup in the last episode.
You know they're working on Jokerverse right now.
Jokerverse
With Jerome 1, Jerome 2, Harley Quinn, Joaquin Phoenix.
You know what? With better writing,
Ghost Heath Ledger.
And chances are, I wanted to say chances are no matter who is writing it, it would be better writing. I actually can't even say that because I don't know what this Flash movie is going to look like, and you know, there's some more than dodgy stuff in the Snyder movies, but more than that's the nicest thing I've ever said about those movies. I think I'm actually not against it. If we have to do multiversal stuff, it would be kind of fun to see a couple of those actors come back maybe and give them a little bit of better material. I mean, like, we're already in gimmicky territory anyway, DJ. Like, I'm just saying, like, if we're doing more of that, if Gotham characters had shown up in the in CW Crisis, I would have been half excited about that, just to see what insane like outlandish stuff they would do. Actually, I would have been more excited with that because you can't mess that up anymore. And it's already kind of mean-spirited, so it would be really funny to see that happen.
We've become Gotham.
The what if of it all, though, is more than half the audience would go, I don't know who these people are.
Yeah, the only thing
because
more
somebody watched that show.
The only thing more obscure than Gotham would be if characters from Krypton showed up.
Yeah, and the what if of that is, okay, that is a guy from a really good Lobo fan film, I guess. Some really good actors in that show. Well, I don't want to say really good. There's some okay acting in that show, but with insane counterintuitive material.
All right, let's try something comic booky. John Ty, what if you had to write one more day? What story would it be?
Well, it wouldn't be that story, so therefore it wouldn't be one more day.
That's an interesting wording.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do with it. It's like, well, the story of One More Day is bad. JMS didn't want to have to do it. He was kind of forced to under contract, and then was done shortly after that. So if you're saying how would you improve that, that's a tough question. If you're saying, yeah, you do a story called One More Day, but you just don't make it one more day, what is it? I mean, you just let Aunt May die. I mean, the way you write that story is Spider-Man for a couple seconds considers going to Mephisto and then goes, "This is dumb. I shouldn't do that." Or he goes to him and Mephisto is like, "Okay, but are you sure?" are you like, even Mephisto's like, "I don't know about this."
Because it's like the Thanos thing. It's like, well, she's gonna die probably next week. So how much time are you buying? Like, did he make a deal that she's never gonna die? I've never read it. I don't know. Or is it just he saves her once?
I made the mistake of reading it once.
Oh man.
Yeah. I'm still not okay. I'm kidding.
At death's door, even if he saves her.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what Aunt May would even want, which is a ridiculous thing.
No, of course not.
She wouldn't want. No grandmother would want, or aunt would want their surrogate son to give up his entire life for her when she's already old and alone. That's weird. I don't want to read that. I can't think of any reason why I would read that.
Yeah, you really shouldn't.
That just makes me sad.
And then what's sad is Smallville did a somewhat, not the same thing, but a somewhat similar thing for their big epic 100th episode, and everybody loved it. Whereas, like, I don't want this person to die, so then this other person has to die. I mean, I guess it's better in the sense that, like, Clark didn't know what was going to happen with that, but it was still that obnoxious kind of contrived trade-off thing. It's not the same thing. I mean, that's not fair, but it irritates me in a somewhat similar way. It's not as bad, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, you don't need an excuse to kill off a character, just do it, you know? And I mean, with the One More Day thing, I guess you do need, the whole deal is you need some kind of contrivance to get status quo back to the place where it's been mandated now thing was, if memory serves, Quesada's fault, and his idea. I think I'm remembering that right. It's been a lot of years since I've talked about this or read about it, but I think the idea was we don't want married Spider-Man anymore, so we've got to, kind of get him back to the status quo where Mary Jane doesn't know that he's Spider-Man again, and not have the marriage and de-age him and all of that. And that was the best they could come up with. I mean, anything you do is going to be lame with that, unless you... Because the problem is you can't reboot all of Marvel. Or at least they didn't want to. So, like, that would have been an option. I'm not saying it's a good option, but that would have been really the only other thing you could have done, I guess. Because you have to basically come up with a way to reboot Spider-Man inside of Marvel. The only other thing you could have done is kill off Peter Parker. And how long is that going to last?
Or you can...
Well, I say that. Obviously, that's not going to solve their problem because now you don't have Spider-Man. But you know what I mean? Like, you either end that story or you reboot. I don't... this kind of, again, half-assed, like... take it back to an earlier status quo somehow sort of thing. It never works well. It's never a good idea.
Yeah. Or you just have Doctor Strange make a spell that makes everybody forget who Peter Parker is, and then he gets an apartment somehow, and he makes his own suit, and now he's Spider-Man still.
I mean, I guess they could have done that. I don't like the end of that movie, but that's still better than what One More Day was. I guess they could have done that. They could have contrived some sort of trade-off with Mephisto where it was, well, to save your Aunt May, everyone has to not know you're Spider-Man. But then it wouldn't fix the... I don't know. Because that would be yet another new status quo, as opposed to taking it back to a thing that they thought people liked better.
Yeah. From Brightburn 1985, $5. What if Captain Logan hates the Tom Clancy Jack Ryan film Patriot Games more than he hated Thor Ragnarok?
I mean, I don't see how that could happen.
That might be the most random question.
I don't think that's likely. That's a thing that he's requested that I haven't gotten to yet.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's
so you're about to review it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's on the list. It should be up sometime soon. Yeah.
That would be quite the feat.
Yep, that won't happen.
I assume that's at least a movie.
Yeah, exactly. And those are going to be completely uncomparable things, too. Because isn't that
Gotham?
kind of a well-liked movie? Like, even if I don't like that movie, it's more likely to be taste issue than, this is terrible, what's anybody talking about?
I'm about to say something I never thought I'd say.
Yeah.
We have our second Gotham TV series crossover super chat of the night.
Are we going to have a trilogy with this?
I sure hope so.
Is there going to be a reboot after the trilogy?
What if both Gotham TV series and Smallville TV series crossed over? That'd be weird.
Thanks for your insightful remarks there. I really appreciate it, DJ. Yeah, that's the only observation to make, right?
That's all you can say.
That'd be weird. Yeah, I mean, I can't see how those two things could possibly be in the same universe. So you would, of course, have to do some sort of irritating multidimensional thing again to make that happen. But yeah, what would that even look like? I mean, it's weird the ways in which they would go together. Because they're both super red. I mean, I made this video, okay? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I've done the hour and a half of Gotham versus Smallville comparing and contrasting these shows. But what's weird is there are some things about those things where they would actually fit together. Smallville wanted to be weirdly kind of a horror show, and Gotham just was. And I don't mean in the sense of they're bad shows. I mean that they had horror motifs in the shows, and both a couple different kinds of horrors. So if you mixed those, it would be a different new thing. But like you could kind of marry them in a weird way that might sort of kind of work. I'm thinking you'd have kind of like two subplots that would have to happen simultaneously, sort of like you already have on Smallville. And I mean, Gotham always had like a bunch of disparate subplots. Sometimes you didn't even know why the eighth one was happening and why you were looking at the scene you were looking at. But I would imagine you'd have, if you're looking at least at like
the stuff from the earlier seasons of Smallville. Let's forget the back half for a minute. You've got your high school show, and you've got your psychological drama slash corporate espionage stuff with Lex. So naturally, you'd put Clark and Bruce Wayne together, and you deal with, yes, I'm gonna answer this seriously, I really am. You would deal with Clark and his relatively untraumatic upbringing, at least thus far, and his wholesome relationship with his parents, and Bruce's tragedy and his losing his parents, and that could be actually a really interesting relationship between them. I always wanted that in Smallville because Bruce was supposed to be in that show, and the creators were never allowed to do that. So if you crossed it with Gotham somehow, you'd be able to do that. Obviously, this is a thing that never would have happened, but that's why it's what if. And then on the villain side, I shouldn't say villain, but on the more adult side, you'd have Lex come in to the corporate world of Gotham and have to figure out how to even navigate that with all of the corruption and the street crime and all of that. Like, would he resist it, or would he go down the evil Lex Luthor path faster, or would he start to, like, bring Gotham out from the corruption and from the brink, ironically, to then just be the evil tycoon later? There are actually some really cool things you could do crossing those shows. The more I'm thinking about it, that is a comic book I would read. Like, if you did, like, the season 11 thing, but it was Gotham plus Smallville, or Gotham cross Smallville, that's what it should be, right? With the slash, Gotham / Smallville. Yeah, I'd read that.
Gothamville. I'm gonna jump back to
Gothamville. Smallville.
Smallville.
you swallowed your own tongue saying that. Hey, before you get to more questions, I want to go ahead and do my reveal now.
Okay.
So, tomorrow night, Austin and I are... It's not a flashback.
Who knows? You haven't revealed it yet. It could be,
True, it could be.
Capsule Movies. Who knows what it is?
Tomorrow night, Austin and I, at 10 o'clock Central Time, are going to start a new blind commentary series. Some of these will be movies that I have seen before and I'm watching for the first time in a while. Some of them will be things I've never seen before. It is a mania, so we're not going to prepare for these. I mean, DJ and I did prepare for some of the Marvel ones with that mania. This is Austin, and he doesn't like me to be too professional. So, no, I'm kidding. We thought this one would be more fun because of what it is if I came in mostly blind on it, because some of the movies in this he thinks, and some other folks have said in the Discord and stuff, that it will be funny for me to respond to it as it's happening. So there'll be sometimes kind of reaction videos, but hopefully they'll be enjoyable. And the blind the blind commentaries we've been doing lately on Fridays have been well attended and been going well, and I think this should work pretty well for these. So sometimes we're gonna do this every other week, like DJ and I were doing. We're not gonna do this every week, but some weeks we'll have these blind what am I trying to say? These marathons. Mania and Marathon. We'll have marathons, and some weeks we'll have the new Mania. And let's take a look at the intro for the new show, shall we? Here it is. Wait, that's not it. Hold on. That's Inside Baseball. I have this on the wrong display. I'm really good at this.
That's why he's streaming 7 days a week, guys.
Okay, here we go. Here it is. By the way, a couple people have already called it. This is a thing that we've talked about doing for a long time. And I'll also give you, it's a thing that we at one time, Eric and I, even announced and then didn't end up doing. I'll be doing it with Austin instead because Eric's not working with us at the moment. But here it is.
Yep, it's Morphin Mania 2.
There it is. It's Video Game Mania. It's coming
Video Game Mania!
tomorrow. It will begin with Tron, because we're going to do some movies, and this is the way Eric and I had always kind of conceptualized this.
Compiled.
We do have a list. It's going to be some 50 movies. So if we do all of it, it's going to take a couple of years because we're going to do it just twice a month and not every week, of course. But we're going to start with Tron, and some of them will be movies that are actually based on video games, obviously like the Resident Evil franchise, which I'm not looking forward to having to watch all of, and Mario and those kinds of things, the Doom movie, stuff like that. And some of them will be movies that are about video games and video game culture, but not based on video games. Things like Tron, things like Ready Player One, and movies like that. The second movie on the list is The Wizard. We will be watching that.
Hey, wow. That's awesome. No, that's cool. That sounds like it's going to be all-encompassing and an epic journey.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be nuts because this, of course, will be the first of a Mania where the majority of the movies that we do are terrible.
Well, Phase 2 was pretty rough in Marvel Mania.
Yeah, but tough on a different level, you know, because you and I are on the other end of the spectrum from some people with some of those movies. Like we're not in the majority. Like a lot of people like movies that we didn't like in that. There's a lot more consensus with a lot of video games and how terrible they are, or video game movies and how terrible they are. Video game movies don't have a good track record. When people throw out what they think is the best video game movie ever, none of them are things that I would give more than a 2.5 or a 3 on a rewind. Hardly.
Yeah, you might be like over a year in before you get to one that you enjoy.
Well, and that's part of the reason that we wanted to do movies that were about video games also, because more of those are better, or at least some of them are. Shockingly, I actually liked Ready Player One quite a bit. I'm sort of looking forward to doing that one. But yeah, there are some okay things there. Tron's a neat movie. I haven't seen it in a long time. I don't know how much insight I'm going to have on some of these things because I don't know them well, and at least half, if not 60 to 70% of these will be movies I've never seen before. And so we'll try our best to create good content for you, even though we're not actually preparing for this, because we thought that some of the entertainment value would be in seeing our responses for the first time, as opposed to giving you a college lecture about a video game movie. So we're gonna do our level best, and hopefully it's a lot of fun. And there'll be watch parties like the marathons we've been doing, and real laid back. And we'll obviously rely on the live viewers some in giving us information about the films and throwing out their own amusing anecdotes and things. And hopefully we'll all have a lot of fun together. So tomorrow night, 10 p.m. is Tron, and I'm looking forward eventually to seeing Tron Legacy again because I haven't seen that in forever. And I remember having a couple big issues with it that I've always complained about, but overall I remember enjoying it okay, but the only things that stick with me with that are the things that I couldn't deal with. So
interesting. Yeah, I need to go back and watch the original Tron because I've never seen it, but I did see Legacy and I didn't like it. But
so people are asking me about certain movies and whether they'll be there, and I'll answer some of these.
Yeah, that's cool.
Would Space Jam 2 be part of that? We probably should include that. I don't know if it's on the list. I let Austin put the list together, and I've looked at it and I signed off on it, but I just can't remember if that was there. So I'll double check. If it's not, I will make sure that gets there because that does count, I think. And we should force Austin to watch that movie again because it'll be amusing. Regardless. Mutale, think you guys will eventually get to the Uncharted movie? Yes. The last two things officially on the list are movies that haven't come out yet, but will be well out by the time we get there. And again, remember that this is going to take 2 years to do if we are diligent and do it every time we're planning on it. If we get behind on it for some time, it could take even longer. So anything that's not out yet but slated for this year will absolutely be there, and anything that comes out next year also has a real good chance of being of actually showing up on this show. We're not doing any TV miniseries or anything. There's going to be some of those soon. Like a lot more video game stuff is being adapted that way now. We're just doing, hour and a half, 2 hour films.
Yeah. Ryder says Sonic the Hedgehog, Detective Pikachu, Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, all those things will be
All
there.
those
Sonic
count.
the Hedgehog we've done before, but we'll do it again, and it'll be interesting giving that another once-over after seeing Sonic 2, which I'm holding up definitely too much hope for, but I really like what I'm seeing with that so far, and I'm getting my hopes up for it. I shouldn't let that happen. I really shouldn't. But I don't think it will make me like the first movie very much more at all, but I'll probably have at least more respect for those people if they make the movie that it looks like they're making. I don't trust that, but I don't know how much more actually positive will be on that movie so much as the people making it, but it will probably be more fun to watch the first one again with me if I see them make a thing I liked better. So anyway, yeah, that will be there. Alex, The Last of Us show is probably the first video game adaptation that has any shot at being great since it's written by the writer of Chernobyl. And I just don't understand why you would even adapt that, because that thing is so story-driven in the first place. And a lot of people have said that, but I just think that's kind of... I haven't played much of Last of Us, but, like, it feels like... I mean, not in a telltale way, but it feels like a TV show you're playing. I don't understand why adapt that. I guess for people that don't play video games but want the exact story. Sort of like comics that you adapt straight.
Yeah.
I guess there's that.
Utale brings up an excellent point that you need to do Spy Kids 3 Game Over.
That's on the list.
Video game.
That is on the list.
Oh, I might have to join for that one. That's amazing.
We are going to have DJ there anytime he wants to be there. He wants to do some of the god-awful fighting game movies.
Yes.
I will...
Street Fighter. The Legend of Chun-Li with Lana Lang.
I don't know that he has any time. I will mention it to Eric, and he'll have an open invitation as well. But nobody get too excited about that, because I just don't know if he'll have time to show up. And it's going to be late at night, and I don't know if he can make it. But this was originally a thing he and I were supposed to do, so it would only be fair to tell him about it. And then we might have Dan some. I know Jason, it'll be late at night, so I don't know if he'll do it. I know Jason will want to be on the one for the Wizard, because he's been begging me to do a commentary with him about that movie.
That's great.
Pixels is on the list, unfortunately.
Oh, what a doozy that one.
Daniel Davis, War Games is a really good idea, and I hadn't thought of that. That might go there. It's not on the list now, I don't think, but we could put it there. Somebody asked if Warcraft was there. That is, of course, there. So our intro,
Prince of Persia, yes,
made by DJ, says every video game movie ever. That's somewhat misleading. There are some things we're going to have to leave off the list, but for the most part, we're doing everything. We're not doing... We are going to have some animated things. I don't think we're going to do anything direct to video unless we decide to keep the series going longer than than that initial 50 or so.
Yeah.
Because there's things like the animated Mortal Kombat movies that might be cool to do and stuff like that. But at the point where you start going with more animated movies, it's like, what Pokemon movies do you even do? Because those are technically video game things. And I could see picking a couple maybe, but not doing everything. We are going to do all the Resident Evils just because Austin thinks it'll be funny to force me to watch through those. So, like, that is going to happen. But I don't want to do every Pokemon thing.
No, I mean, maybe just the first movie.
And I've seen that. And we got to... And if we do any Pokemon, we have to do that just for the insane Pikachu slap fight.
Well, and you have to do the extended version where the doctor has the exact same motivation as he does in Jurassic House, where he's trying to clone Pokemon so he can bring back his dead daughter.
People are asking more about this. John Ty, are you going to do... Oh, man. Sorry, there are... It's flying down now. He asked if we're gonna do the Jumanji sequels. We are, because those are about video games. Those are on the list right now. Free Guy is on the list.
It's a long list.
It sure is. Vitaly, I'm curious how Cap will feel about the Prince of Persia movie. Yeah, I've never seen that.
I have seen that. I own that, unfortunately.
Slipmaker, Last of Us is going to be trash. I'm putting my money on that right now. Oh, man, I guess we'll see.
People are excited, though. This is going to be awesome.
Jedi Knight, there's also the Sonic OVAs. Yeah, which I would put on here if we were lacking for material. But I don't know that we're going to go out of our way for things like that. And I've reviewed one of those. So another thing I want to announce about this real quick before we move on to the rest of the Super Chats, DJ, is my plan right now, and this could change just based on availability and such, or resources, what I can get my hands on. My hope is to continue these Saturday streams I'm doing, and sometimes they're video game streams, and when we do a video game movie mania, doing a game in the franchise or a game based on the movie that we just did.
That's cool.
When they're actually movies based on video games, or I'm sorry, strike that, reverse it. But the games that the movies are based on, and if there's a game that's related to it when it's not an actual adaptation of a video game, I might want to try to do that too. So like we could do like an NES classic when we do
The Wizard.
The Wizard, thank you. That movie I just mentioned, and there's a couple of possibilities for Tron, but that will probably be harder. So we might not actually do that. We might skip that one. But I don't know. We could pull up the old arcade game and crash and burn on that because it's really hard.
Oh, that's awesome. Little Geekvolution tie-in streams.
Yeah.
We even have tie-in streams now.
I don't know which Mario game we'll do. Maybe I don't think I've ever streamed Mario 1 before, so I might just stream Mario 1. Or do some Lost Levels. That could be fun.
Yep. People are really excited.
Oh, great. I'm glad to hear that. I think that is on there, Daniel Davis. Final Fantasy The Spirit Within. I saw that when it came out.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea what I was looking at.
Yeah, that's another one that you have to kind of limit because there's a million of them.
Final Fantasy?
Maybe not that many. But there's a few animated movies.
Are there really? I thought it was just the one. Well, that one was theatrical. So if we're sticking to the old Marvel Mania rules, we would have to do just the theatrical ones. Okay. We didn't do that with Batman, of course, because the only way to get to 30 or 40 was to do all the direct-to-video stuff. But with video game movies, there are a lot of theatricals, so...
Yeah, and we didn't do that with Power Rangers, because there's only three theatrical things.
And yeah, AMC Comics, we're not going to do any TV stuff in this. We're just going to keep it all... at the moment, the plan is to just keep it all theatrical video game movies. Plushy NES classic. I just mean a classic NES video game. I don't know what, but like that movie was ostensibly all about NES games and was kind of just a big Nintendo commercial in the late 80s, just before Mario 3 came out. And so I would probably that week pick an old NES game, something that shows up in that movie probably. And maybe something I've never played before.
All right. Shall we hop back to questions?
Let's do that. How many more super chats do we have, DJ? Is it countable?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It isn't countable.
Oh,
8 of them.
Thanks. Good. He loves to count things.
It's marvelous.
Let's go ahead and knock them down. And we are only 20 minutes past the hour, so hopefully we'll have time for a little bit more if people want to add to that list. So this is not a last call yet for Super Chats, but let's see how we do with more what-ifs. Go ahead.
All right. Thomas.
Mutali, remember when this was a what-if show? I know, but I knew people were going to be excited about that, and I want to spend a few minutes on it. Let's get back to the what-if questions. Here we go.
Thomas Lowe. What if both... Oh, sorry. We're not getting back into that one again. What if Spawn Year is adapted into a movie?
Wow. Well, the acting is almost sure to be better, at least than my side of it.
But the running through snow will not be.
Yeah, I don't know how you adapt Spawn Year without the reviewing part of it. I guess you could do it sort of like the AVGN movie, where you change the story so that the whole thing is somehow a lead-up to Captain Logan reviewing some Spawn thing at the end somehow or something. I mean, we did a movie version of Spawn Year where we condensed the whole story down and just, showed the highlights and then did... And then put in the major reviews and the most entertaining reviews, I think, but it doesn't really have a movie structure because about halfway, it's a lot of reviews, and then about halfway in, there's just a recap segment that says, here's all the information you need to see the last 45 minutes of this. And then that watches, the last few, 3 episodes of a TV show. So, yeah, the Spawn Year movie isn't really a movie. Like, I guess it could be done, but I can't imagine what that would look like, DJ.
I'd watch it.
I would hope that Todd McFarlane would make a cameo in it where you do this meta thing where he is angry about how hard I am on him, but he's cool enough about the material that he still would do it, even though I'm just like lambasting him constantly.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't even pay attention to it, but he would just be in it because it's Spawn. This next one, I feel very special because it's from the original Be Moved.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He works for Sony, you guys. No, I'm just kidding. Good.
He gave him the idea. It was just his name. You're like, hey, that's a catchy name.
That sounds like a slogan. Yeah, sure. We better use it before some politician does. Can you imagine that as a presidential slogan?
Be Moved. Oh man, so the original Be Moved wants to know, what if the other Be Moved was an imposter?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure what drama is happening behind the scenes with Be Moved.
I don't know. I haven't been on. I haven't checked the paparazzi cams on Be Moved lately.
Was this a thing where like somebody came in and called themselves Be Moved, and then whoever the original Be Moved was like got upset about it, and then now they're complaining about it again?
I can't keep up with our users' names anymore.
I can't either.
It's become its own thing. We need like another channel that just tracks.
We need a wiki names. Specifically for Captain Logan show mythology so that I can read it. And I can know what the mythology is of my own show, because you guys have created it, and it's extremely convoluted. I have to say, honestly.
I mean, that's where The Welder was born, was this show.
That's
so much
true.
stuff came from this show.
I hate to be overly critical, but if I had to review this show as a narrative, it's like a 0.5, I think. Like,
it's not quite Power Rangers a Turbo movie, but it's pretty close.
Jedi Knight says that would be sus.
You got to spell the whole world out. We're old. I mean, I'm already over 30.
My son had to explain the whole sus thing. It's like, how do things get into the vernacular because children play a video game online? I don't know what's happened. Jedi Knight,
right.
What has ever happened to Here's $5? I think the last time we saw him was like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago.
He comes back for the big milestone shows. He'll be here for 200.
He probably will be here for
He'll
200.
be here for Geekvolution Wife Swap.
Yeah. I'll be there for Geekvolution Wife Swap.
I'll be there. I'll be at my first time in the bunker.
I honestly think that's a legitimately great idea, and I don't know if we can ever pull it off, but I really kind of want to figure out how to do that.
Someday.
I think it'd be so cool.
40s. Late 40s. All right. 5590 ERS 499. What if George Lucas made a sequel trilogy instead of a prequel trilogy?
I think even with the headspace he was in and how out of touch I think he must have been with his own like creative mojo at that time, because it seems like there was kind of an internal conflict going on, not to psychoanalyze the man too much, between the business side of things and the creative side of things. I mean, he really needed a co-writer with that, and he had that before, so like, that really needed to happen. Like, the original Star Wars movies obviously wouldn't have been as great and might have been kind of convoluted and difficult to even understand what you were looking at if he hadn't had a co-writer. So it's maybe not fair to say just, his being out of touch with his own creative juices, but I do think some of that was going on. Anyway, even with all of that said, they would have been better just by virtue of not having the prequelitis problem. I think sequelitis is always more stomachable than prequelitis. You're not stuck with that stuff going back, where you have things that are supposedly informing the movies that you've watched already. So whenever you go back and watch them, now you're just thinking about all of the things that contradict them or make stuff lame, or characters that seem to be acting out of character now because they're not the same people that they were when he came back and did prequels, decades later. So no matter what those movies were, I think they would be likely to have been more cohesive than the prequels. I don't know that they would have been more popular because those movies still did insanely well, regardless.
Yeah, but it's hard to know how much of that was just Star Wars coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
And all the original actors would have been a lot younger. It wouldn't have been the same sequel trilogy we got, obviously.
No, certainly not, of course.
Completely different.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's an interesting question.
It's hard to say that Star Wars... I imagine Wars is in a better place now if that had happened, no matter what those movies are. I'll say that. Even if Lucas still sold it to Disney. You know? Because those movies would have been made already. It's kind of hard to screw it up too much after the fact if you're... I would think. I mean, because I also think that it would be more likely. Well, maybe not. I was going to say it might be more likely if he had made sequels that we would have continued to make Star Wars movies. But that's probably not true. He probably still would have shut the whole thing down until he sold it.
Yeah. But you wouldn't. But Disney's whole modus operandi would not have been to get away from the prequels and get back to formula, because we would have already done that.
It could have, though. Because we could have gotten so far away from the aesthetic of the originals by moving forward that they're still trying to tug at your heartstrings and get you back into and hit you with the nostalgia with the 70s mode and all of that. Because if he goes forward, I imagine that he would try to make it tonally feel differently and set it up quite a bit ahead, just like he said it quite a bit in the past, because he didn't want to repeat himself. I think he would have done the same thing he did, just going forward.
Yeah. Maybe so. But it's weird. It seems weird, though, because he didn't want to get away from his characters enough to get away from Darth Vader. So I feel like if he wouldn't have went too far forward enough to get away from his characters completely.
That's a good point, too. Yeah. No, it's hard to say what exactly. I mean, apparently he had plans and outlines and things for if he had done that.
Yeah, and those came up. Those were found in they're being spread around the internet. I don't remember everything.
So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it would have only been, the 4 or 5 years later thing that what's his face did in the trilogy of novels that everybody loves. I haven't been in the Star Wars space in a while, so
yeah, it's interesting. Man, what if questions are hard?
They are. They're.
Let's go back to what if Captain Logan grew feathers, or what? I think Daniel Davis said that.
It's going to drive me crazy. That it will come to me in a minute. I just cannot remember what the man's name is. Anyway.
All right, Lewis Cox again.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean Thrawn, but I'm forgetting that writer. Anyway, good.
Mm-hmm. He says, "Oh, what if RDJ played Doctor Strange instead of Iron Man?"
Yeah, that's interesting. So two things with that. The first question is, because there's a couple ways I can interpret that. Is the idea that we start with Doctor Strange, with Robert Downey doing that, and that's what starts the MCU? And can Doctor Strange get popular in the way Iron Man did? I would say no. My first reaction to that is you're
too weird.
not
too comic booky.
Too comic booky, too fantasy laden.
Well, the first thing I thought when he said that was a quote that Eric said in, I think, the Iron Man Marvel Mania, which is, "This is not Iron Man's origin. This is Doctor Strange's origin." They kind of Doctor Stranged their Iron Man.
Yeah.
So I think he would have been a good fit.
I was alluding to that earlier. No, he would have been a good fit. But I guess what I mean is, I wanted to just start with, if they begin with Doctor Strange, what does the MCU look like? The second thing I was going to say is, if you begin with Iron Man with, let's say, Tom Cruise again, and then later
that's what he was talking about.
And then later on, Robert Downey is playing Doctor Strange. I think that goes remarkably well, assuming that more movies get made after that, and you actually do have a shared continuity.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Because I think he would have been just as good for that role.
Yeah.
And it would have been neat seeing him play the same kind of arrogant and tortured character, but with magical powers. Like seeing seeing the dark side of him sometimes come out in his magic and the way he would be able to play that kind of thing.
Yeah, like the Iron Man 2 stuff where he's like being dangerous and like shooting watermelons, but like much more scary because he can like knock a building down.
I would almost go as far as to say that Robert Downey is probably in a world where he didn't play Iron Man better for that role than Cumberbatch, and kind of perfect for both. Like, you could have just had Robert Downey Jr. play both of those roles. And then you just pretend like it's not Robert Downey Jr. with you know, that you're not looking at twins.
I mean, I think obviously I like Cumberbatch, and I think he could do a lot better. I don't think he's given much to do. Obviously, he's given nothing to do in Spider-Man, which I feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, I do too.
Like,
he's in the same place Ruffalo is with Hulk right now.
Yeah. And he doesn't obviously have the kind of pull to be like, no, the character wouldn't say that when he's in Spider-Man, that Downey did. Because Downey never had the Ruffalo Doctor Strange thing where he like completely destroyed his character. Like,
no,
I think
and I think it'll be likely better in his own movie, regardless of how gimmicky they get with the multiversal stuff. But it still sucks that it happened that way for him in that movie. I don't think it'll be like Thor, where he gets thrown under the bus in his own movie. And then he's suddenly Thor again in an Avengers movie?
No, because that's mostly the actor in the Thor movie just wanting to do that. I don't think Cumberbatch signs up to do that. I don't think that's what he wants to do.
I mean, you have to blame that director just as much, but you're right. Like, I don't think Cumberbatch wants to just make up all this dialogue in a scene.
Oh, I don't think he's, especially because he has to do an accent. That kind of helps. That kind of hurts you from doing, like, as much improv.
Now, it maybe goes without saying when I say that Robert Downey is good for both of those parts because of what we were just talking about, that they kind of made Iron Man too much like Doctor Strange in the first place. So, like, of course he's right for both of those. But even if they play Doctor Strange in the way that they changed him to not be too much like Downey as Iron Man, exactly the same way, I think Downey's still probably just as much the guy for that. Like, even if he didn't have as much of the narcissism and arrogance in the first place. So that's really that's a really interesting question. But what do you think about starting with Doctor Strange? Downey plays Doctor Strange in 2008, and that's the movie they put out. And not the same movie they made later, because there's no way it would have been the same. So, like, we don't know.
Just Iron Man.
We don't know what exactly that story looks like, but it probably is pushing envelopes a little bit more. It's probably a little bit edgier. It probably watches a lot more like an independent sort of underground project, and it probably has, just like Iron Man, quite a lot of improvisation.
Yeah, I don't think that's the way to start. Not even just from, like, normal people ready for that, but, like, in the Marvel Universe. Like, you got Doctor Strange and Hulk coming out the same year. Like, I guess you have to do Silver Surfer and Namor next and do a Defenders movie, because that's your characters.
That's a good point. Like, that, it's not the place to start the Avengers. Doctor Strange isn't a founding Avenger.
No, it'll be really weird. And that's even a deeper pull than starting with
Iron Man. Can you imagine? Fury shows up at the end of Doctor Strange. He's like, there's a way bigger universe. And then everybody's like, even people in the know are like, I'm actually not 100% sure what he's talking about. Because, like, why would we be building the Avengers this way?
No, you're building to the Defenders.
We're actually building to the Illuminati. Is what we're doing. We're gonna have 4 MCU movies and then an Illuminati film. That's where we're going.
Man, what?
Next, we're going to get the rights back from Fox magically and do a Professor Xavier film.
Wow. No, I want to go to the alternate universe where we do 4 films. We do Hulk and Doctor Strange first, and then we do Silver Surfer and Namor, and then we get a Defenders movie. That would be absolutely ridiculous.
Which you couldn't even do because they didn't have the access. They didn't have access to have those characters.
Yeah, they didn't even have Namor or Submariner.
No. I mean, Namor or Submariner.
Namor or Silver Surfer. Submariner and Silver Surfer.
I thought you were joking when you said it too. That's amazing.
All right, great question.
Great question.
Cox. Next one is from Athlete in $5. A lot of new names today. What if Captain Logan reviews the first My Hero Academia movie?
Okay, so now the what if is just going to degenerate into, here's the thing I want you to do. Let's speculate about the future where that exists. I mean, I've read the first volume of those comics, and that's all I know about that, and it's been so long I don't even remember much about that anymore. I remember really liking it, and it was fun, and it had some wonderful action. That's what I remember about that. So yeah, that could happen eventually. I don't know. So the what if of that is I would have more knowledge of anime.
I might check it out if Cap gave it a positive review, because that's like one of those things that's like, I kind of think it might be for me. I've heard people say that, but I just haven't checked it out yet.
Eric's told me there's really no reason to watch that stuff if you've read the comics, because it's like direct adaptation.
Mm-hmm. And I don't
but
know
the
what
nice thing about that is
is.
if you don't care about reading anime, or reading manga, then you can get it that other way, and you still technically read it, basically. So I mean, that's nice.
Yeah.
If that's actually the case. I've heard that maybe it moves away from that some as it goes along, but I don't know for sure. This is not stuff that I'm familiar with.
John Ty, what if DC asked you to write a 12-issue Superman pitch? What story would it be? John Ty with the comic questions.
Wow. 12 issues. Well, at least he's not doing existential what ifs again. I mean, he can, but I feel like I'm generally maybe a little bit better at these. Man, I feel like I've pitched some Superman stuff on this show before, and I don't want to just repeat myself, but like the first place I would go with a 12-issue thing. I mean, this is a cop-out. One of the things I've always wanted to do is just completely reinvent Smallville from the ground up and make it what I feel like it always should have been in the first place. And I've gone into all the things I would change about that.
I was going to add a caveat and be like, no Krypton stuff, no Smallville stuff. Because you never write Superman.
I never write Superman. Well, Clark Kent is Superman, so at least it's that character. But you're right. I mean, I would want to do Krypton stuff, probably, because I like Krypton more than I like Superman. But if it has to be a Superman story, man, I'm trying just in the moment to come up with a really
Cap
cool
thinks
pitch.
the character is boring because he's just a Boy Scout.
That's not true. That's not true. I do think that I've done a video about whether or not Superman really is hard to write, like a lot of people just kind of assume, because there don't seem to be as many really great like comic book stories as there should be, and there's a lot of missteps and runs people have attempted and that sort of thing. And I've always said that he's difficult to write in the sense that if you want to just do a action-driven thing where it's all about him hitting bad guys, he's always got to have really, really, really powerful bad guys, and it's hard to put him in danger and all of that. So for me, a Superman story would be a Clark Kent story first, and I've talked about this before. I don't know what exactly the pitch is yet. I'm going to ramble until I come up with something decent. Hopefully I think of something. But it would be a thing about internal conflict where Superman has to deal with his own immortality at the same time as he's dealing with other people's, with humanity's mortality, and the difficulty with that responsibility. How do you stay human, like emotionally and intellectually and all of that, and not accidentally become a god, not accidentally take advantage of your power and all of that. Like, I think being Superman is harder than writing Superman, and I think that's what the story with a character-driven Superman story should always be about. I don't know. I don't have a brilliant idea right away.
AMC Comics.
I'd have to give it a little bit of thought.
Something with Lionel, Luthor, and Lex.
Well, but see, then you're going back to Smallville, because Lionel is not a comic book character. Comic book Lex is Lionel Luthor. He doesn't have a rich father.
Mm-hmm. Do a proper Smallville finale that ignores all the parts of the show you didn't like.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, even though there's a lot of not great Superman comics, a lot of the kinds of things that I would want to do have already been done really well. Elseworlds things like Batman and Superman switching places, that's a thing I always wanted when I was a kid, then I found out it existed, I read it, it's pretty good, that's Speeding Bullets. I would have thought of doing like the whole El family comes to Earth instead of just Kal-El. That's been done now. A lot of Krypton prequel matter that's kind of decent. Some of the things that I might want to do, reinventing the character, JMS is already done. So I'm just not sure what new stuff I would bring to the table with that character. I would just have to give it a little bit of thought. I mean, I'm thinking more of things I would avoid than things I would actually do, because I love Lex Luthor, but I don't know what else I would tell with it, unless... Okay, alright, here's the thing. Well, I guess this has been done halfway decently some as well. Look, 80 years, there's a lot of good Superman material. I might do a thing where Superman and Lex do the traditional Superboy thing where, like with Smallville, Superman and Lex were friends at one point. And then, obviously, they grow apart and they become enemies, and Lex is more than shady and is out for himself and thinks that Superman is a bad thing for the Earth, and he's anti-alien and all of that. And then do a story where Lex actually finds out that Superman and Clark are the same person, and the most unlikely thing happens, which is they end up becoming friends again. And both of them have this kind of tug-of-war where they're trying to bring each other more onto their side of looking at things. Where, like, Superman starts to look more humanized to Lex because he still appreciates his childhood friend Clark Kent. And...
yeah, the Magneto and Xavier.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be awesome. They're best friends, but they 100% disagree with each other.
And it might even be cool to do that story while Lex is in the White House.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's my pitch. I want to do something with Doomsday, but I'm not sure what without it just getting ridiculous, because...
well, he's in the body of a high school student.
That guy wasn't actually a high school student. But, yeah.
That's true. They're out of there at that point. But
anyway,
he's now a big Star Wars guy. I think he plays Darth Maul. Anyway,
that was harder than it should have been.
Well, we've got nothing but Batman and Superman questions from here on out.
Okay,
much, so
all right, cool. Well,
strap in.
I'm in that. Yeah, I'm in that space now. Go right ahead.
Checkers the Inventor, $2.
I don't have to think about Timothy Zahn anymore, if I couldn't come up with earlier.
What if John Blake carried on as Batman?
You know, I feel like we've kind of answered this one once, maybe, but yeah, let's try it.
That would come out right after Man of Steel, probably, because Man of Steel was right after Rises. Mm-hmm. So those would probably cross. He would probably be. I don't know. Would they be more? I think they'd be more likely to cross that over into the DCEU.
I think they would. I don't think. Well, and again, this we have to tackle two different ways. I don't mean to make everything overly complicated, but when he says, "What if John Blake continues on as Batman?" Immediately, I'm thinking he means just what would that story look like, as opposed to what would the real world with superhero movies look like. But we can do both. If that were to continue, and let me think about the timeline for a second. Yeah, so they do Green Lantern, and that flops, and they're like, crap, what do we do? And then Rises comes out, and then that's super popular, and they go, well, let's go ahead and keep that character going as Batman. And then they still make Man of Steel anyway. I don't think we have two separate franchises. And I think especially because Nolan is producing, it seems like to his chagrin, on Man of Steel.
Oh, so you think Man of Steel would have just been in the Batman universe?
Yes, I do.
That Superman. They would have made a Superman for that universe.
Absolutely, I do. Because it feels like it could have been anyway with that first movie. Not after that, but it feels like it desperately wants to be totally that because that's what sold before with Batman. And I'm like, why isn't this just in that universe in the first place?
It would have been, it would have been the same. Yeah, Batman is the first superhero in your universe. It would be so weird.
Yeah, it would be weird. But it feels like just opening the curtain up and going, now there's aliens in the Nolan Batman universe, and we can do all the more heightened, over the top superhero stuff, the pseudoscience and the supernatural and all of that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
As far as what he would be like as Batman, it would be a Nightwing in a Batman suit. And the whole point of, I always said, the whole point of the end of that movie seemed to be Nolan saying, here is a completely different kind of person that would act differently as Batman, continuing the mantle, but not with the same kind of brooding, and he probably wouldn't be as rough and tumble, but he also would be more cop-like and maybe okay with carrying a gun. He'd be a very different Batman. I would, first of all, I would see John Blake Batman carrying a gun. Well, wait, no, I wouldn't, because he has that whole thing where he's like, oh, wait, that's bad, and he throws a gun, and I never bought that in the scene, by the way. Maybe you could retcon that in some way, because I like the idea of a different person in the bat suit making a case for carrying a gun is okay, and maybe even a good idea if you don't have the psychological hang-ups that a man who saw his parents murdered in front of him would have about guns. But that's a notion. But yeah, I guess that character wouldn't do that, because I forgot about that. He's like, oh, even though I'm a cop, I gotta throw my gun away. But yeah, I mean, he'd be Nightwing in a Batman suit. And you might even have a somewhat more lighthearted kind of franchise. I also think that very quickly he would be, for lack of a better way of putting it, franchising. I think that movie is him beginning to build a Bat family kind of team. I think the end of that movie, he's got at least 2 other people in costume fighting with him. And I think his first villain is D20, Black Mask, Clock King.
Yeah, and at the end of the movie, he straps a grenade to Black Mask and throws him in the harbor and he explodes.
Look, we didn't have that yet, and they would have been looking at characters that hadn't died. Ventriloquist!
Yes, I was just thinking ventriloquist. That was amazing. You just reached out and grabbed it right out of my brain. All right.
We've been doing this too long together.
Another one from Checkers. What is
See, if we do wife swap, your wife will be shocked by all the things that I'll say. She'll be like, DJ says that all the time. Did he get it from you? Yeah, he did. We spend way too much time together.
You just become one person. Our wives wouldn't even notice. That's the twist.
They wouldn't even notice we were different. Your wife would just be like, wow, DJ, you have too many tattoos. And then my wife would be like, I know it was expensive and it really painful, but thanks for getting rid of all those tattoos.
Oh, it is so expensive. My wife looked into it.
Jedi Knight, could Coleman Reese be the Riddler? I like that idea. I kind of like that idea. I mean, he's an idiot, so you'd have to make me buy that. Besides that he's like intellectual and not like smart enough to be the Riddler. Beyond, no, he's maybe too dumb to be the Riddler. I don't think any version of Edward Nygma would ever just like come right out to a rich person with that much power and be like, hey, I can blackmail you, and not think about all the possible ways that could go wrong. Like, he thinks ahead farther than that. Edward Nygma would look at Coleman Reese and be like, yeah, no, I'm with the Joker. Blow up a hospital. Like, this guy's an idiot.
All right.
If Coleman Reese isn't dead in an hour, I'm gonna blow up a hospital.
All right, so we got another one from Checkers for $2. What if Bale was Batman in BVS? So we're staying on this thought train.
Apparently so, yeah. Well I think the writing would be really similar. Timeline wise,
So we're doing a Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. We're a completely different universe, but we're having the same actor come back. It's so confusing.
It would be, I mean, forgive me for saying it like this, I can't find a way to make this interesting in my response. Because all I'm imagining is just Bale coming in, reading all the same lines from that script that Affleck had to say, and just reading it like Christian Bale did in those movies. Just like Affleck, he would have tried his hardest to make it work. And, I mean, everything that's wrong with that movie is on the page in the first place.
Yeah, I don't really blame Affleck for anything.
No. And I don't think it would have made it better or worse.
I don't think Bale would have gotten along with Snyder on set.
No, I don't either. That's the thing, is I can't even imagine it happening, because I feel like Bale would take one look at that script and be like, yeah, I'm not shooting that. And considering some of my issues with Rises, I might have thought that he'd be raising an eyebrow about that script too, but at least he's working with people that are proven and he already likes to work with. And
I think
that's a little different.
We're kind of giving him too much credit because he made Salvation. I think we give him more credit just because he had 2 good Nolan movies that he might not be as much of the reason for that.
Well, that's a good point, because, well, and also you get, who knows what happened with Affleck behind the scenes. I mean, you get locked into contracts and stuff. I don't know that he was able to even look at much of a script before he signed on for that, because
no, because we heard about that forever before it came out, that he was involved,
that he got cast there, and he was probably just assuming that the writing would be there.
Yeah,
because that's not fair. I mean, I shouldn't say that Affleck is any, like, more or less either sophisticated as an actor or appreciates good storytelling any better or worse than Bale, because Bale's not a storyteller and Affleck is.
Yeah. Bale's just an actor.
Good call. But Affleck but Bale might have thrown more of a fit about it.
Yeah, maybe.
Hard to say. Blue Dragon 5, Bale would shut down the first bro-y thing Snyder threw at him. Yeah, I'm imagining him finding a way out of his contract. Like, earlier than Affleck did.
I mean, Dago says he's in Thor 4, so we'll see.
That's true. Back for more war and Thor.
All right, we got 3 left. 199 from Slipmaker.
All right, cool.
What if you could recast any one role? Well, we know Cap loves casting things, so let's see what he's got.
I'm already not great at that, and it's too open-ended. I can't get my mind around it. It's too big.
One role.
It's too big.
So I guess, what's a movie that you love, but there's like one person that like takes you out? I actually have one off the bat.
Okay, you start then.
This is a weird movie. It's not something you would think I would recommend, but I really enjoyed. I haven't gone back to it since, but I really enjoyed the 2016 Jungle Book movie. And but I hated Scarlett Johansson as Kaa. I thought she was terrible. I thought.
And I still disagree. But go ahead. I think she's fine. But go ahead.
She's horrible. Like they're like trying to do like a weird sultry voice. Like absolutely despicable. But, and I don't even have to think of one because the Indian version. I found a video. There was a video on YouTube. The Indian translation of the film has an actress who is also an American actress and has been in American things. And I listened to her voice as Kaa, and she sounds perfect. And I think she should have just done the American version.
Oh yeah, you've told me that.
Instead of, because she's already doing the voiceover for the Indian one.
Maybe you brought this up when we did Lion King.
Maybe so. But that just annoys me every time she shows up because she completely takes me out.
Okay, can I do it for bad movies?
Of course.
Also,
just any movie ever.
I'm just asking because you were like, I mean, I know you didn't ask the question, but I was just wondering if the person that asked it, if they were wanting like a movie I really liked, but like you said it, but there's a character in it that was miscast. Because I'll give you 2. I'll give you a movie that I love and a movie that's awful. And the movie that's awful, if you replace that actor, it doesn't make the movie necessarily better, but it would at least be less counterintuitive. So I'm gonna give you 2. Batman '89, Pat Hingle as Gordon, because it never made any sense. Why that guy? Why did you go kind of like half comic book looking for most everybody, or at least things that didn't seem to? I mean, people thought, of course, that Keaton was a weird off the beaten path kind of choice, but it wasn't like, let's take comic book Gordon and replace him with a guy that looks like 60s, overweight Gordon. Like, why did we do that? And I'm not making fun of the man for being overweight. It's just, if you're trying to get far away from any comparisons to 60s Batman, why would you pick a guy that looks like the Gordon from that show? It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. It's almost like Burton didn't go back and look at any Batman comics and was like, well, I guess you have to have that Commissioner Gordon guy. What does he look like? The only thing he'd seen was 60s Batman. I've never understood that. And I liked Pat Hingle, and I even like him in that movie. But I don't understand why that was the choice. It's weirdly miscast. And then... And he's insane later in other movies. Go! And then the other one is Tom Hardy is Shinzon in Star Trek Nemesis. That is Tom Hardy's first big role, and the character makes no sense, and it's ridiculous, and he does an okay job in it, in that it got him noticed, and his acting was interesting, but the character is awful, and he doesn't look anything like Patrick Stewart at all. What you wanted, and I'm saying this, was McAvoy. That should have been where McAvoy got his start, was as a younger clone of Picard. And then hopefully eventually he would also get Professor X, so that he did both of them. Because I still want McAvoy to be Picard in a rebooted TNG. Not made by the current people making Star Trek, but...
Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe the actress I was talking about, she voices Kaw, is Priyanka Chopra, and she's actually in the new Matrix movie.
Oh, is she the is she the grown-up Indian girl from Resurrections? Is that who she plays in that? Or not? I'm sorry, that is Resurrections from Revolutions. That's the only person I can imagine that's who that is.
She's Sati?
Yeah, that's who that is. Yep.
Yeah, she's in that movie. But yeah, I've heard
So
her...
at the beginning, because you haven't seen the sequels, but at the beginning of Revolutions, there's a couple of programs in the Matrix that are Hindi, and there's a father and a daughter, and she is like 8 or 9 years old, and then for some reason they bring her back in Resurrections and they grow her up, and they went with a different actress, so that girl wasn't her in Revolutions, but she's a computer program, so it doesn't really make any sense that she aged. And it's been like 60 years, so I don't know why she only aged 15 or 20 years, but I have no idea what's going on. And then there seem to be scenes, and nobody still has been able to explain this to me. There still seem to be scenes, DJ, where she's in the real world, even though she's a program in the Matrix, just standing there with no explanation. I don't know what's happening.
I have not watched your spoiler cast on that. I should do myself the favor.
AMC, I don't know, Cap, they did cast Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent, which was definitely a different take. Also, Hingle gets just hilarious. That's true. And no matter the actor, Gordon and Batman wouldn't have any more or less of a relationship. Oh, okay, fine. But... And that's why I hesitated when I said that they went with mostly comic-looking people, because, yes, Billy D. Williams was a race change and everything, but at least it was... just casting somebody that they thought was right for that role, instead of picking somebody that had been in the screen Batman thing they don't want anybody to think about. Like, the biggest fear with that movie was that they couldn't convince people that it was serious, dark Batman and not the 60s show. Why would you want anybody that looks like anybody from that show? That's the only reason I'm saying that. And it was the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if any of that is just how, like, bumbling cop character, like, maybe that was just like an 80s thing, like
maybe, but he's not really bumbling in that.
Yeah, he's just, well, yeah, I guess he gets more incompetent as the series goes on.
Yeah, he's not,
just shows up in his jammies.
He's not incompetent. I mean, you could make some arguments, but the movie doesn't think he's incompetent. It is weird when you get to the end of the movie and he's like, oh, this vigilante gave us this signal, we can call him any time. And I guess he's on our side because he dropped the bad guy to his death off a building.
And I'm cool with that.
I trust that guy.
All right. So back to Batman and Superman. Jedi Knight. What if Kal-El's parents escaped Krypton with him?
Well, then you would get... like I said, there's an Elseworlds that does this, and it's... not as good as I remembered it when it first came out, but it's got some interesting ideas. But that is Last Family of Krypton, which came out in the late 2000s, I think, when I started reading Current. That was 2010, 2011, I think. So I guess the beginning of the 2010s, unless it was '09. I don't recall. And yeah, the idea is that the whole family escapes Krypton, and then there's like a religion built around them. So Catwell's mother takes the religion of Rao and rallies people around that, and they kind of try to make Earth a utopia to some degree, and there's some interesting ideas in that.
All right. Still in DC verse.
Yeah.
Ethley in. What if DC Comics was finite? How would the stories go?
Well, I mean, I don't think I can just give you the ending of every single character in DC.
Let's go.
Okay, here's the cop-out answer. The big war in the original Crisis happens, but the good guys lose, and the whole multiverse is destroyed. The end.
Now I'm depressed.
Nothing gets rebooted. We don't put all the universes together in one. It's just that's it. That's all you get. Read a book. No, I mean, you'd have to go through every single character, of course. I guess the Cliff Notes answer is, because it really just depends on how you see some of those characters and how you see some of the mythology. Like, where does Batman go? I mean, I kind of like the Kingdom Come thing to some degree, where he becomes an old man, but he's got to be, held together with technology, and he gets real senile, and he becomes maybe kind of the worst version of himself. You hope somebody brings him back from the brink, but I've always kind of liked that idea. Batman Beyond does a little bit with that kind of thing too. I see Batman as a mantle that maybe gets passed to somebody like a Terry McGinnis or a Dick Grayson or something, and keeps going on, but people don't necessarily play it the same way that Bruce Wayne did, because your attitude and your worldview and your ideology would be a little bit different. I do see Superman as a character that lives for a really long time, if not forever. Wonder Woman obviously is that way as well, but like, you'd have to go through every single iteration of the mythology.
Shall we go with more Batman?
Yeah. That just seems like an open-ended question that person wants me to answer till the end of time, and I just don't have that kind of time.
Just keep going. That's the next show that we're announcing. For the next 2 years, while we're doing Video Game Mania, we'll also be answering this question.
We're just going to write the end.
Every other week.
John Ty said kind of like the Marvel The End series. Yeah, I was thinking that too when that question was asked.
I had the Hulk one of that as a kid. It's very depressing and terrifying.
I read the Fantastic Four one.
The Hulk one is like, he's the only person left on Earth, but he can't die because of his healing factor, and he's just wandering around as an old man, but the Hulk won't let him die, and he just wants to die, and he gets like eaten by mosquitoes completely all the way till he's just bones and like his eyeballs hanging out, but he heals in like 17 seconds, and then he's fine again. He's like jumping off. It's like Groundhog's Day. He's like jumping off cliffs like to commit suicide, and the Hulk comes out halfway down. It's like, it's super depressing story, but I like the art as a kid. All right. Anyway,
we are past 2 hours. How many more super chats do we have?
3.
Okay, cool. Let's make this the end of the super chats, because I do have to get going.
All right, last call. James Egan, $7.99. Hey Cap.
Hey, thanks. How's it going?
Are you and Austin going to review Batman Ego before The Batman comes out? And
it's not a what if question.
That's true. That's true. And please, can you guys review the series Dark on request? Thanks.
If we get an official Patreon request for that, we would do the pilot and maybe the next episode. That's how we tend to do TV on that show. So if you'd like to make an official request at the $15 tier, not to plug that, but we get so many requests, the only way we can do them is through Patreon. But I mean, sometimes if I get enough interest in a thing and I get curious about it, I'll look at it, but I never promise anything to an individual without getting on the list for that. But anyway, I have had a few people ask me about Dark. I tried to start it one night, and I was not in the right mood, the right headspace for it, because it's very cerebral, and it's German, and you've got to read subtitles, and I was exercising and stuff, and it just wasn't the right thing to watch while I was doing that. But anyway, As far as what was the Batman
Batman
story
ego.
he asked about?
Ego.
Does ego massively inform the Batman? Maybe this is a thing we've talked about and I totally forgot about. If they are basing a lot of things on that, I will definitely try to look at it before, whether I review it or not, before that movie comes out. We don't have a lot of time for extra reviews right now outside of the request, but I might try to make an exception for that.
Checkers the Inventor, back again.
Hi, Checkers.
$5. What if you were given an ultimatum to only watch movies released after today, or only watch movies released before today? Which would you choose? This is one of the best questions we've ever got.
I like it a lot.
But it's also the easiest question.
It should be difficult, but it's not. In a heartbeat, it's the latter. In a heartbeat, it's things that came out before right now. Because, I mean, I talked about this a lot the other day in my insanely existential video about whether or not I'm having a midlife crisis. That whether or
Still
not
the
I'm
best
having
stream I've ever seen. It was amazing.
Oh, thanks, man. A midlife crisis on Infinite Mias. I feel like too much of what's coming out right now isn't really for me and isn't to the storytelling standards that I wish things were. A lot of things feel kind of pandery. A lot of things feel like they're insulting my intelligence. And even beyond that, I'm getting older and there's too much stuff that I feel a little weird about having never bothered to sit down and watch. Like, I'm not as well watched as I ought to be. I've never professed to really be a movie buff, and part of the reason is because if you knew about some of the classics that I've never seen, you'd be insulted. I have spent too much of my time watching newer stuff and not going back and looking at some of the foundational cinema that I ought to have seen. And that's not to say that the only movies that should count are like movie canon things, but there are definitely some things on that list that I finally bothered to sit down and take a look at that have opened my eyes to a lot of things, and in some cases have been like nigh life-changing and stuff. But sometimes it's hard to appreciate what comes out now if you don't know about major things that happened before because of influence and all of that. And so if I wasn't allowed to ever go back to anything older and I could only look at things that are newer, then it's almost like you're closing a textbook or you're never allowing me to go to college. And, like, I can't have that. So, like, I guess what I'm saying is I'd rather go to college forever, if you understand the analogy, than to spend the rest of my life without the diploma. I guess that's what I mean.
Yeah, there's way too many things I have not seen, and if you, like, completely closed the door and I couldn't look at any of that stuff, that would be so sad. I would also, in a heartbeat, say, I did. As soon as I read the question, I was like, oh, absolutely. Because I would never run out of stuff. There's thousands of movies that I could watch for the rest of my life, and I would
Exactly.
never run out.
You're never going to run out. Yeah.
All right, and the last one.
Everybody, by the way, is in the comments right now is talking about ego and saying that it was a Darwin Cook thing, which I think I knew at one time, but I'd forgotten about. And you know what? I bet I'll crack that open and be like, oh yeah, I've read this once. It's just I don't remember. I don't know if I ever have. I don't know.
Yeah, Blue Dragon 5 says it thematically informs the Batman, so not maybe plot stuff, but that's cool. But yeah, last one. This is from 559.
It's sort of like Batman the Cult with Dark Knight Rises, where like nobody realized just how much that influenced that movie. And then you go back and look at it, it's like, oh, there's like direct scenes taken right out of this.
5590 ERS. What if, speaking of, 499, what if Chris Nolan directed Man of Steel?
Yeah.
See, my mind first goes to what he wanted to, but that's not the question. It's what
That's not the question. No,
yeah.
and he wouldn't, and there's no way he would have, I don't think. A couple of things immediately jump to mind. There's no way he directs that movie and allows that ending.
No, because he argued with him.
He begged and pleaded with what's his face, Goyer, to not do that at the end, because that was, if memory serves, a Goyer move.
Gotta have a big ending. Gotta have a punchy ending.
Unless it's been too long since I've looked at this. Unless Snyder came up with it and asked Goyer to do it, and Goyer went ahead and wrote it, even though they didn't rewrite the rest of the movie to match. But I thought that was a Goyer idea. Where he's like, hey, what if this happened? But it sounds more like a Snyder move, so I don't know. Doesn't that seem like a thing Snyder would do? Where like they're kind of pitching this movie. They go, hey, what if he just snapped his neck at the end? Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, he's like, oh, we can't have him get sucked into the Phantom Zone. That's lame. We got to see him die. It's so funny because you and I love Watchmen, and eventually someday we're going to do a commentary on that. But now we're jumping on the bandwagon of hating Snyder, even though we like a movie that he made.
No, I think it's going to be a lot more interesting to do it now after so many movies I don't like from him.
That's interesting.
It'll be the what the heck happened commentary, because it doesn't make me like that movie any less. It really doesn't.
Okay. That's what I'm worried about.
Or at least so far, because I have not had the heart to go back to it.
I know. That might be the most depressing experience for us if we both go back to it together and it falls apart.
We should do that semi-soon, because it's so weird that we've never done that. 13 years I've never done a commentary on Watchmen. And I did that rewind a bazillion years ago.
Yeah, and I loved it. And that was the one I chose for my DVD when we were doing the Geeks United Club, was I chose that rewind.
Slipmaker, thanks for that. He says, this has been a great stream, been a long-time watcher, but only recently joined the streams, and very happy to be here. I'm glad you've had fun with them, man, and thanks for your comments and for participating.
Yeah, there have been a lot of questions and super chats tonight, so thanks.
As far as what that movie looks like with him directing it, obviously the style would be different. It would, I mean, what's so weird is that movie feels like, in some ways, Snyder trying to do a Nolan.
Yeah, the color grading would be the same.
Yeah.
But
well, it wouldn't be... One thing I could be sure of, this is just an easy detail, is you wouldn't be confused narratively with the visual storytelling as much, because Nolan's better at that, and he's better at coverage, and I've seen him talk about how important it is to get insert shots and crowd shots and things like that, and he gets like paranoid about not getting enough of that stuff. And Snyder seems to forget that people built a set that you should put a camera on. So like, yes, it's true that there are sometimes places where, because Nolan's called himself out on it, there's places where he needed reaction shots and wide shots of backgrounds and things that he didn't get, but he's thinking about that, which is more than Snyder is doing. And so some of those like some of the mythology and stuff that you only get through the visuals would actually come out if Nolan was filming that movie. And you'd be able to tell when they built a set as opposed to just in front of a green screen, because they built, I've talked about this a lot, but they built that whole Krypton set with the beginning of Man of Steel, and you can't tell that they built anything. You look at the behind the scenes, and it's like there's so much detail in all of like the writing on the walls and stuff, and you don't get to see much of it at all. So at least Nolan would give you that.
Yeah, well, and I will say a couple things, just so we're not like saying it would be 100% better in every respect. I think there's a chance. I don't think Nolan is particularly good at action, specifically fight scenes. I don't think the fight scenes would be as good. Like the fight scenes in Dark Knight, like, are horrible. Like, I don't know.
The fight scenes in Rises are especially horrible, except for the bat break scene, which I still kind of like some things about anyway. I
don't know why in the world Christopher Nolan, in his infinite wisdom, decided to bring on a guy who had just invented a martial art like a couple years before, and it was like, we're going to use this new martial art. No, martial arts have been around for thousands of years. Use one of the tried and true ones. Don't use this ridiculous elbow martial art that he put in that movie that looks horrendous, and I can't.
I never even thought about that. That's so weird.
Bad. Yeah, he used it where it's like a Krav Maga ripoff where he like only uses his elbows when he fights, and it looks terrible. And then I think the other thing.
Okay, but there is a thing I like about that choice, and I should never talk to you about martial arts because I don't know anything. I mean, this is your world, and I'm not in it. But the only thing I'll say about that is I kind of like that at least we did something offensively with the gauntlets. Because that hadn't really been done before. So, like, Batman's got these big, sharp gauntlets on his arms. And the idea that he would actually use them and they wouldn't just be aesthetic is kind of cool. I mean, to only fight with your arms is dumb. But the scene where he's training with Roz and he uses it to, like, deflect a sword and stuff, that's a good idea. That you would actually use that for that.
Yeah, but I don't understand why in the world he's training with like ancient ninja society and he's learning this new goofy martial art. Like he should be learning freaking karate or like ancient, like I don't know. It's really weird.
Right, but it's not realistic and it's not set in the real world. So the idea that in this kind of more heightened comic book world, you'd have like the rules are different, the martial arts are different, and they wanted something that looked, not like everything else. I can see the logic behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I see, but it just didn't age well at all. Like, right after 2005, it was like, oh crap, this guy's.
Nobody would ever use this. This did not catch on.
Hey, that's what happens in movies sometimes. Sometimes you think you're on the, you gotta take risks. But I think the other thing that Nolan is not particularly good at is like emotional relationships, and I think there's a chance I might not like Lois and Clark as much if he did it. Not that they're like have some great relationship in that movie, but I think he also would have been it would have been a little dry.
That's fair, but I don't know that Nolan would have had any more or less input on that script if he directed that movie beyond not letting that ending happen the way it did. You know what I mean? Like, I would imagine the relationships and things would be pretty similar to what they were.
Yeah, but there's something about the way he directs relationships. Like in Rises, like when like I never bought him and Talia, like they're supposed to like be in love so much in that scene that she's able to take advantage of him, like he loves her so much. I don't know. He loses me a little bit with his romantic relationships.
Jedi Knight, I agree with that. Jedi Knight says, wouldn't Batman use MMA in that world? I agree with that, and I feel like Christian Bale kind of looks like an MMA fighter, especially in Begins.
Well, it looks like that's what Pattinson's doing more of. Like he just like brutally punches that guy's face off, which makes sense. It's weird, right? Because I feel like he would know like a classic martial art if he grew up, if he was trained by ninjas, obviously. But then he would I feel like he would tweak it. He would also be learning modern stuff and kind of like make his own thing.
Well, I think the idea in Begins is that he's learned a lot of street fighting and things, but he's not disciplined yet. So then he goes and trains with Raz and he gets refined. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's why he's not doing as much of that brawling later, but it might be nice if we had a combination of it. I'm wondering with Pattinson if he's done that training. Because we know he's in like the second year of being Batman. He does not seem to be acting, from what we know, like a guy who went off and did that 10 years of training. I'm wondering if he's done that.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Barron, well, Nolan's not an edgelord nihilist. So I have infinitely more faith in him than Snyder for a Superman movie. I mean, yeah, overall, considering some of what we got with him in Superman, I agree with that, especially once you get past Man of Steel. But I also don't know that I would have wanted Nolan to direct a Superman movie either. That wouldn't be my first choice.
No. Like we've talked about ad nauseum, we would have liked to see like Matthew Vaughn do it, or the guy who did The Incredibles, Brad Bird, those kind of guys.
I even think at this point it would be interesting to see what the Logan guy would do with it.
Wow, that's interesting.
Just because I want to know what that even looks like.
Clark.
Cal. L.
So many. We could do a trilogy. We do Clark and Cal. And then, I don't know what the third one would be.
Row. Anyway.
Well, I mean, you would lose it if there was a movie just called Zod.
Yeah, maybe. I wouldn't trust it at this point.
Oh, what a crazy show tonight. That was a great one.
It was. Well, thanks everybody for coming for the What If show, and thanks for participating, everybody that asked us questions, and we will see you again next Thursday night for another one. We're just a few weeks away from whatever the 200th episode spectacular will be. I have ideas, and we will work something out. Mutali just said Kent. That's what it would be called. It'd be called Kent. Tomorrow night we're gonna be unveiling. I say unveiling.
It's not like the other. It's not like Logan was called Howlett.
Yeah, that's true.
That wouldn't have sold.
You're right. It would just be called Clark. Howlett.
Howlett is a great name for a movie.
Sounds like a bad Harry Potter spinoff.
Did you see? Oh, we didn't talk about this. I saw some ridiculous news story that that whatever the guy who's going to play Gambit was, Channing Tatum.
Yeah, I haven't read that yet.
Stopped watching Marvel movies because he was so traumatized by his movie not happening.
Oh, wow, really? I'm going to have to read about that. Yeah, we should have covered that tonight.
Geez.
But I wanted to do this what if thing.
Yeah, he came out and talked about his experience with that movie,
Yeah,
which I'm glad never happened. But I mean, the X-Men movies are in such a bad place. Like, who cares at this point?
Yeah. And then there's also that crazy news about the casting for Madam Web, which apparently is still happening. Maybe we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, we should, because that's ridiculous that movie's being made still.
Well, anyway, once again, thanks everybody for watching. Tomorrow night is the premiere of Video Game Movie Mania. It's called that because I couldn't come up with a better name for it. And we're going to watch Tron Blind. I've not seen that in a long time. It'll be fun to do it again. And Austin has never seen it. So we're going to all watch that together. Anybody that wants to pop in for that. And then on Saturday, I'll be doing a music stream over on YouNow. So join me for that if you want to just put it onto the background with whatever you happen to be doing. And in the meantime, I was Captain Logan. And that was DJ Martinez.
Oh, no. He's forgot my name.
No, I'm just kidding.
200 episodes is too much.
It's too much. This is when we know we're done. Thanks again, folks. We'll see you next time. Bye.